It all began when the gods of this universe decided to involve all the planets inhabited by beings intelligent in a battle to the death. The planets they lost would be erased immediately, leaving no trace. Our protagonist's name is Jin, and has acquired a skill in arts, rank martial, belonging to a god, but has not been able to unlock its full potential. The rest of the humans were too weak and lost the battle against the orcs. Only our protagonist survived. But the Earth was still defeated, and began the elimination process. When the entire planet disappeared, only Jin was left, whose ability resisted erasure. This unique ability attracts the attention of the gods, who decided to give it a second chance. To unlock all the power of your ability. Also received a broken system that allows it to raise level often faster than the others. Also gained access to an achievement store, where you can buy unique objects and obtain new skills with the points you earn when. Then wakes up startled. The first thing he hears are the voices off a television screen. Wakes up in a daze and tries to remember what happened. The last thing he remembered to have read about the system was that it would be returned to the era of the first inning of the league. Is taken a moment to observe their environment and immediately recognizes exactly where it is, on the roof of the building where A used to live. In 2020, in South Korea there was no killers destroying the streets and deadly games. Even children were playing on the sidewalk. Imitating the king of the sword Yoon Sojin, who realizes that it actually was transported back to peace time without prior notice, just to be sure and vote. Your status window to see if your skills have also been restarted has been returned to level 2, which confirms that you are back in time, right at the point where he first entered the league. Has no idea what is going on, but this is the perfect opportunity for him. If you use information from your past life, there is a possibility that it could change the future, and must change it, to be able to protect everyone this time. With the knowledge of the end of the game, we'll make sure everything is different this time. In the year 2020, Korea had a solid position and had, with someone who headed the lists in terms of strength, among the best players in the world. There were 11 considered the best, and among them one defended third place. Was a man with dazzling strength, capable of defeating a dozen players with a single attack. That man was the king of the sword named Yoon Sojin, and he was the reason why Korea maintained a position unbreakable as one of the strongest countries in the world. Was the pride and treasure of Korea, and thanks to its participation in the battle tournament, won the title of strongest warrior in Korean. Was able to maintain the highest positions within Northeastern Asia. At least they could do it, until the day when Jin was coincidentally reincarnated. That day Yoon Sojin personally announced that he had decided to change his name, Ryuei, and naturalize as a Japanese citizen. Should have been a normal day, in July 2020, but that day the tournament, Korean received the biggest blow in its history. Jin always hated looking at the man's face. That practically condemned Korea to ruin. After Yoon Sojin left, Korea fell into absolute chaos. Went from being in the top ranks of the tournament to suffer repeated defeats, and eventually plummeted within the league at an alarming rate. People blindly I hoped that there would be a big change in the rankings, and thought that there were still many bright young men and women promising products in the country that could help Korea stay at least within the top 20. With that defeatist mentality, it is not surprising that they will fail so badly. No one appeared to fill the void left by Yoon Sojin, and things only got worse with time. Things would have been different if there had been a little more time. But the tournament was too brutal. Once the league started, everything became much more serious. At first, the tournament was treated as a game, but the league turned it into a war, total for survival. If someone died in the game, he also died in real life, and began to appear in the countries that fell to the lowest ranks. And unilateral massacres occurred in these places. After Yoon Sojin left and Korea fell to the low ranks, was eventually destroyed, those who survived got together and began to say that if the king of the sword had stayed, Korea would have had a different ending. That's how important was the king of the sword, and he is Jin's brother-in-law to vent his anger. Jin breaks a family photo of Yoon Sojin lying in the living room. Jin still wonders why his sister loves someone like Yoon Sojin, and how everything would have been different if she were still alive. Now that you have finished remembering the past, it's time to focus on what to do in the present. It is good to have returned to the past, but right now their statistics are pathetically low. In his younger years, before the space leak, Spent all his free time, drinking and betting all his money. I didn't even know how incredible his gift was. At that time, a gift is a special talent granted to him, to a player when he meets years old. Only a small number of players received it, and as Jin was unlucky enough to obtain a gift of rank, the lowest, increases its ability to predicting winners in games and making a living betting. At that time, I didn't know how valuable his ability would be, as it is a skill that is revealed completely alone after his awakening. Yet that does not change the fact that their statistics are horrible, and that type of statistics are typical of a level 1 player. However, in a state of drunkenness, literally drinking a potion of experience, thinking it was alcohol, and that made him level up mysteriously. Also has many achievement points, apart from the fact that they are worthless and look like useless. Gene, I'm sure you didn't do anything before entering the Li, so it is rare that it has so many points. It is possible that all of these changes have occurred because you went back in time. For Mal decides to review its inventory, and something there captures immediately his attention is an achievement point exchange coupon granted by special benefits to the last who decided to try again. Obviously this was made especially for him, and is an object of range X, which means that it is incredibly useful and rare. He uses it immediately, and the system activates an achievement store for him. The store has exclusive items for him, and can be improved with a certain number of achievement points. You will probably get more options if the upgrade a need to buy something that you can use right away. There are not many options in the store, so give in and decides to improve it. Level 2 expansion does not offer nothing particularly useful, so take it up to level 3, and once again, there is nothing very useful to him, with only 50,000 points remaining if the store is upgraded to level 4. Cost him only 10,000 points. The more the store levels up, will be more expensive to improve it again, so you only have 2 options. Him purchase all objects that are available now, or bet your points and attempt to improve it to level 4. Has always been a gambler in Federate, so the choice is obvious. Upgrades your store to level 4, and its action immediately bears fruit. The next level unlocks an object called Urgent Diary that allows you to repair other objects from a state of defective up to a perfect one. Results like this are the reason why he can't stop betting. How it could stop when it continues to win the top prize again and again. Now that he has achieved this god level ability, it's time to test your true capabilities. Thence to a room inside the huge attic, and uses his thumb to unlock access to a special area. Is the game room of Chun Seojin, and Jen is almost surprised that the system not yet recognized as a member of the family, despite the fact that the real owner of the room is no longer. Yet there is no reason to complain about a gift free like this. Opens the inventory of the tournament championship and finds exactly what I was looking for. An object called Don Fanzo's damage brush. An object of rank to which even the inventory describes how, but with a little help from his new urgent rescue tool, achieves. Repair it and turn it exactly into what you want. The damage brush of rank becomes an object of rank that contains a link to the martial god. However, before I can admire his work, he appears a notification informing him that the tutorial of the Gangnam Bronze Lee is about to begin. Only 10 seconds left before it is summoned to the arena. So Jane has no time to waste. Llama to your status window and use the brush to manipulate your statistics. The reason why it could rise to become world number 7 in his past life was for an ability which eventually led him to be called the Saint Martial. This unique statistic combines its strength, agility, and life points in a single, and it's called Power Martial. The brush was abandoned because it was damaged, but thanks to him can finally begin its awakening. Finishes writing just as the account ends, and is forced to log in and summoned to the league of the tournament. The tutorial mission of the Bronze League is yellow, and the players must compete against Coliseum users with 100 other participants. Once only half remains, the survival game will come to an end, and the winners will be decided, who will quickly review your status window as soon as you are invoked, and see that somehow the unknown has obtained martial power. And thanks to this, even included 1,000 achievement points as a reward. This is only the first step towards your ultimate goal, to obtain the Divine Art without a name. But with only this improvement, should be able to easily overcome the Bronze League. The system will also warns that it is connected to the tournament without a, so it will suffer 100% of the pain in the game. Keen remembers this from before the start of the league, spatial during the tutorial period. People could reduce pain by buying corpses. The one worn by his brother-in-law Yoon Seojin was a high-end pain-reducing product, up to 99%. Jin plans to take advantage of this later, but for now he will have to manage without him. In the game, the menu of the achievement opens up and reveals to him that he has a limited mission, must reach the number 1 position in the tutorial. And as a reward he will be awarded 1,000 achievement points. This did not exist in his past life, but completing this mission will be easy, thanks to the help of martial power. The game finally begins. And not even for a second, after notification is given, someone attacks him from behind with a sword up high. The surprise attacker appears to be playing catch a unsuspecting novice and get an easy death, but is surprised when he only has the attack with only 2 fingers and cannot even retrieve his sword. Baijin turns to him and thanks him for being so generous as to give him the first death. This is undoubtedly the most fun content in the game, the ability to slaughter people without mercy. Another thing in the world that has changed completely with the introduction of the tournament was the appearance of guilds. The guilds are groups of people who train and manage players, and everyone is incredibly interested in the tournament. For this reason, each country invested its resources in training players, and companies also invested aggressively in its growth. Proposed the creation of large and small guilds. In South Korea, thanks to this, set out to train strong players early in the league. Gangnam Bronze League is a place where the stars, emerging members of each guild make their debut. In this particular Gangnam League game, an aspiring player is summoned to the Coliseum like the rest of the participants, and is trying very hard not to get nervously. This possible cannon fodder is called Duok and considers himself luckier than anyone else. After all, is with the Granule Divergent that is managed by the Divergent Group. This famous guild is known for having many rising stars and the young ordinary dojo. I would like to join this impressive union after obtaining the gift of rank 2 agility. Only a small minority of people can obtain a gift of rank 2, and thanks to that, is sure he can reach the top 50 now. The first step is to find out who your opponent will be. Their eyes scan into the snow, and all he can see are powerful monsters, brutal and savage warriors with a terrifying appearance. In the face of so many Dioku options, take the brave decision to ignore them completely and turn around, as if I had seen nothing. After all, staying alive is the most important thing, and the other players look at it as if they could smell their fear. If he is eliminated for being absent-minded from the first second, would be absolutely embarrassing. By looking around, most of the players appear to be from important unions and everyone has a good team. Being here doesn't even feel how to be in the Bronze League. However, among the darkness, notice someone who looks like out of place among all other emerging stars. Wears a tank top, sport pants, and has no shoes or any kind of equipment. Dujoku wonders if that person even plans participate in the league bronze or if she was summoned by accident. Must be a rookie who was brought in by mistake, which also means that it is an easy victim. An assured death. Prepares to attack while, thanks to his luck for giving it such a simple prey. From the beginning, as soon as the system notifies that the game has started, Shiu wastes no time and throws himself to give the final blow, the alleged unsuspecting rookie. But to his absolute surprise, not only the rookie blocks its attack but does so with only 2 fingers. It makes no sense that someone who seems as out of place as it may keep up with its rank agility ability at. Before you can process what is happening, already throws it aside with little effort, throwing it as if it weighed nothing. Jean makes fun of him for coming to participate in the league bronze with a simple dick as agility, which infuriates Juoku, who cannot accept that his ability to Manhwa is being insulted by someone who seems to be a beggar. Maybe Jean is just full of arrogance because they were able to block an attack, and if that is the case, Hoku plans to teach him a lesson, charging at full speed. It seems that the player plans to go all the way to Hyan's neck, and our protagonist looks forced to admit that even his speed is not something to be taken lightly. Boku throws himself straight into his neck, but Jean manages to dodge the attack, lowering the body just before I reach it. However, the attacks do not end. Duoka comes with another hit, and one more. All its attacks are easily dodged. But that doesn't mean Jean is having a good time. Is used to fighting with higher stats. And now his mind has to adjust to being, again, in the body of a level 2 player. Duoku is not even that fast, is that in whom it is now slow. Which means that this fight will not be as easy as it seemed. However, even with that, Someone who has experienced countless combats like him can see that the disappearance of his attacking style is too simple and predictable. Hoku launches himself for another powerful attack, and Hin decides to stop dodging. This time he hits the gun in the hands, making the sword fly through the air. And before Dojoku can process what just happened, Jin jumps, traps the sword in the air, and the nail to his opponent's neck. Finally ending the fight, Dojoku falls to the ground, and as his body fades away defeated, promises that the next time he and Jin meet, he will be the one to win. That makes Jin breathe a sigh of frustration, and really puts into perspective how kind this world is, even when they are dead. Continue to talk about their next battle. The system appears and informs you which has achieved the first death of the tutorial, and obtains 100 achievement points for it. Unfortunately, the sword disappears because the player who possessed it, our protagonist, has died. He does not need a sword. And now that it has had a good warm-up, it's time to move on to the next battle. First, has to secure more than 5 deaths to obtain a good position in this mission. As I expected, no one is going after the mirrors in the tournament as well as players. There are also too many, but a death of Eros is only equivalent to 0.1 of a player's death, which means you would have to kill 10 holes to count as one player death. For that reason, most people completely avoided the heroes, especially in this situation, where are wild enemies like orcs. To go after them would be completely stupid, but the system seems to like stupidity, because it gives him a new mission to kill the Germans, orcs in the Colosseum. Fly hunting is definitely not efficient, but will receive 500 points of achievement as a reward, which is 5 times more than he obtained for the first death. If that is the case, then there is no reason not to go after the orcs. These toys, basic, are nothing compared to a real or high level, so it shouldn't be a big problem for him. Since nothing stops it, decides to go all out against unsuspecting heroes. At the beginning, the orcs can't believe there is a human, almost naked, running towards them at full speed, but they quickly recover and group together to try to kill him. The first 2 closest to each other throw their axes in the hope of cutting it before he even gets close, but Jin manages to catch them easily and then throws them back at him, killing several orcs with a single blow. That causes the rest to go into a frenzy, but Jin is already on the move, running among them all and appearing right in the center of the group. Then, with a single movement of the second axe, several orc heads come out flying, but our protagonist is not over yet. Has only killed 5 orcs so far, and the rest are not very happy with their actions, are even more motivated to kill him now, but they simply cannot match it moves faster of what they can follow. And your experience in battle, it is quite noticeable at this point. Another orc throws himself with a spear, determined to kill him quickly, but his weapon is easily caught and broken, leaving him confused and stunned while Ten prepares to kill him with his axe. However, the axe breaks unexpectedly when he tries to attacking the orc. That gives the orcs a little more confidence. Think that now that their weapon is broken, it will be easier for you. Face him. All the orcs launch themselves against him, and Jin gives them credit for being so persistent. But no matter how hard they try, are simply not at their level. The ground with force and the wave of shock is enough to break the ground by making blow up all the orcs running towards him. Then jumps into the air and grabs the weapons that were released from the hands of the orcs when they were pushed, and in a second crosses the darkness, killing even more orcs in the massacre process. Continues and more orcs fall until only one is left. The last orc is too paralyzed to move. But at that moment he finally realizes that Jin is more of a toy than they are. By understanding that, Jin also deletes it, successfully completing the mission. The system delivers the 500 points of achievement promised and also levels up after the fight. Level in the middle of combat is unusual, as the experience is normally calculated at the end of the game, but this could, because it is still at a low level. Whatever the reason, Jin does not complain and takes the opportunity to upload your statistics as long as you can, and if there is a statistics to which you want to give the highest priority, is a martial power. Martial power combines 3 statistics into one, and although other people, only one of those could be improved. Separate statistics. A single level of power. Martial can double your skills at a minimum. There is also another reason to be able to. Martial is special for Jin, and it is because once reach the blood level in this statistic, will have the possibility to obtain the art, Divine Nameless. If you want to become stronger, then you have to get that art as soon as possible. However, there is a major disadvantage to this statistic. and it is not easy to increase the level of martial power. It is usually necessary to acquire a wide variety of combat and training experience in order to increase it, and the dots only serve to increase the pace, maximum growth. However, this time for some reason, the level of martial power actually increased. That's great for him, and Jean is not exactly sure how it happened. But if it continues to increase in this way, his hope of becoming the strongest could become a reality. No time to stint idly by. After all this, it is still while reviewing your statistics, an archer shoots him, a princess which he easily predicts and manages to avoid. The archer is paired with a warrior who carries an elegant team, and both clearly look down on him. The girl tells him, "Dear partner, to put an end to this quickly," and the smiles confident in their faces show that they think they are going to get rid of it with ease. It is not uncommon for two people team up in a battle. This game of survival is designed for player to player, but there are no rules that prohibit that the participants display the logo on your clothes. Also indicates that they belong to one of the top 10 Korea guilds, the Turtle Guild. The problem with this mirror is the combination of both a warrior and an archer form a duo of short and long-range attackers. The fact that they are on the same team as well means that it will not be easy for Jean. Face it appears a notification informing that only remain 60 survivors and that the tutorial is about to end. Many people have already died, and with the end so close, all that Jean would have to do is to dodge the couple's attacks, and should be able to survive to the end. But if they both came specifically to kill him, then it must seem like an easy target to them. While Jean tries to decide what to do with these two, they are so confident, saying that the warrior even invites to the archer for dinner if he manages to kill Jean. Just before the fight starts, Jean checks the scoreboard and sees that he is barely in first place, with 4 deaths, which means that if he manages to kill these two, will guarantee its position to begin with. Goes after the archer first, but killing her while is still distracted by the warrior's action. With its power statistics, Marshall, currently level 6, has no chance against him. The warrior remains in shock at seeing that his partner died so easily, but not even has time to assimilate what is happening because Jean throws himself behind him and takes a gasp in his back with his sword. Fortunately for the warrior, his thick B-rank armor manages to save his life, and thinks that Jean, you will not be able to get through it with such a mediocre weapon. But Jean continues to attack, using the sword to stab the armor over and over again in the same spot, slowly creating a monster with its continuous strokes, until the hole is large enough as to eliminate Mercury. Elsewhere, in a dimly lit office, a woman watched the replay of the fight with a cup of tea in the hand just as Jean cuts the warrior. This woman is Li Han, 3rd Division Chief of the Human Resources Department of the Divergent Guild. Think it's a relief that Jean has not been right next to his bodyguard, Lin Gian, who was in the same game as Jean and managed to finish second to. Gian did not get it, that they are basically telling you who is weaker than someone else, but even so, it advises him to avoid fighting with this rookie, and EAC for now. What you need Gian to do is collect data. However, while Heian watches the video on his boss's monitor, cannot avoid to note that it has definitely seen Jean somewhere before. Divergent Guild line is known primarily for possessing a gift of is the Great Promise, and its performance in the Bronze League met all expectations. Should have come in first place, as everyone expected, and probably would have achieved had it not been for the appearance of Jean. The rescue team of the Turtle Guild can't avoid surprised reactions, realizing that not only Jean beat some of its most promising members, but also managed to come in first place, being only at level 2, without any equipment, no group affiliation, appeared with a shirt without sleeves and sports pants, and somehow managed to get 6 deaths without using weapons. Your performance in this game was enough to awaken many questions among the players of the world. Chan himself lies down in his living room while checking the rewards for taking first place in El tutorial of the Bronze League. Received increased experience, 50%. And as a result, it rose from level 3 to level 6. Your leveling up speed is probably due to the fact that it is still at the rookie, but it's a good bonus anyway. I do not understand any game points, which is the currency used by the system, but it did score statistical points with its level rise, which directly assigned to be able to martial once again. Its martial power increase, moving from level 6 to 9, also acquired a conquering nickname for the tutorial. which awards you 1 point, additional in all its attributes, and an increase, 20% in the experience gain. The nickname is only applied in the league, bronze, but it is fine as it is. With this effect, now has 10 points in martial power, what makes him incredibly powerful in the league. Bronze, the promotion battle to the silver league, will survive when it reaches level 25. So until then, just concentrate on following, increasing its power, constantly. There are already many improvements in its stats and strength, but there are still something more than happened upon reaching level 5. Unlock the class change, which means that you can now choose a class. When choosing a class, it is important that the player knows what each one offers. There are 4 options to choose: Archer, Warrior, Magician, and Support. In his past life he chose the Warrior class, and as he already has an expert knowledge of it, choosing again would make her life much easier. But in your achievement store, there is an option to purchase an additional classroom space, and with that, even if I choose a different class this time, he can always add the Warrior class at a later date, buying it for 10,000 achievement points. Thanks to this, no need to choose the class Warrior immediately, and you can try something different. Your finger moves for the options while deciding which one to choose, and finally chooses one later. Is summoned back to the Bronze League area of Gangnam for another mission. This place is full of thousands of zombies crowded together, and the mission this time is defense. Zombies are at the base of a championship and players must kill them and protect the glass that rests on the top of the castle walls, while they do their best to survive the attack. There are multiple towers, and the battle will continue until there are only 5 towers. At the top of one of these towers is Lin, a guild warrior, divergent, looking at zombies with disgust. They may be in a game, but that does not make the vision of decomposing diamonds be more pleasant. Behind her, the other players appear, and seem to be familiar with the map as well as with the mission down. Meets the people who were paired with her. One is a group co-keeper, with a grade B team that looks pretty solid. Another is a magician who does not seem affiliated to any guild, but his equipment is impressive, and it doesn't look bad at all for this level. These two seem to be good colleagues to work with. But the most important person in this type of mission is the support. The defense mission is a struggle, long-term, and the support is who ensures that they can survive the fight. He is summoned at the end, and when the light dissipates, Khan is surprised to see Jean appear as the support for your group. As the previous time, his team is quite unique, and he has a tracksuit and a metal pipe. Undoubtedly the strongest equipment available. 20 minutes before being summoned for the mission, decided to choose the class support when you selected that option. The system itself warned that this class was not compatible with him. The reason why you chose the support class, despite being so bad, for which the system had to confirm his decision twice, is because the class grants a new ability called Divine Power. That is unlocked when you choose it. Divine Power is something it needs desperately if you want to develop another unique statistic, but it is one of the most difficult skills to do. Growing, that is, because it cannot be improved easily with training like other statistics, and there is no way to upload it except investing extra points in it. Jean, of course, does not want to do that since he is devoting everything he has to power statistics. Marshall, in the hope of obtaining soon the nameless divine art, would never waste his valuable points on anything else. Then why chose the class support and obtained the divine power statistic? Because he knows another way to improve that power, a method no one else knows. The secret is in its bright new pipe. The other players are just as surprised that Heian, seeing that Jean is the team's support, and in particular the magician, does not hide your frustration for the superior team, and the Jean skirt yells at Jian for not having chosen a better team, and even emphasizes how expensive yours is compared to, believing that Jian has a bad team because he is in. The goalkeeper tries to calm the magician before he says something too out of place, but the magician doesn't want to hear anything, calls Jian disgusting, and even says he doesn't want to play with someone so bad. Will clearly ruin the team. Gaon closes his eyes with discomfort and wonders why its horrible luck forces her to play with a troll. Yet it comes out of his thoughts. When I heard the magician, I was surprised. Jian has the corpse magician by the neck of his cape, and our protagonist holds it in the air, as if it were a doll. Then, without a second thought, throws it down the edge of the tower, directly into zombies hungry below. The magician had been complaining the whole time that he didn't want to play with Jean, so our protagonist helped him out of the game personally. The magician reappears after dying, and as soon as it reappears at the top of the tower, begs Jean to forgive him and promise to give the best of he has for the team. The man who begs at the feet of our protagonist is Kin, Wooyuk and the reason for his change, sudden behavior, are the disciplinary techniques of Gin. When a person appears in the Bronze League defense game, it granted a total of 3 lives. Kim Duduk, who was immediately resurrected after being launched mercilessly from the tower, received another kind of free fall courtesy of Gin as soon as he reappeared. Thanks to this, now he has only 1 life left, and if he dies once again, will be banned from the game and will be in last place. That is why he is now begging for his life at the feet of our protagonist, hoping not to be thrown away again to serve as food for zombies. Needs to avoid coming in last place, because if that happens, its level will drop as a penalty. That also means that all the skills that bought with his own money will disappear as a result if the level of a user does not meet the requirements of a skill. This one automatically deletes who is at how fast. That changed Hyuk's personality, especially considering that in his last life, appeared attacking immediately. Hyuk tries to promote himself as a very useful fire wizard against hordes of undead, and is also at level 15, which makes it very strong for this type of match. For any other equipment, it would be a valuable resource that they would not want to lose, but all its chattering has reminded Gaon who he really is. Hyuk used to be affiliated with one of the Big 10 guilds in Korea and was respected by all, but fell 4 times in the promotion leagues to silver, and after that he only dedicated himself to provoking fights. In other words, Gaon considers him a loser. Hyuk continues to promote his skills and promises to cooperate with them, but on one condition: he wants Jin apologize to him personally for killing him twice. The goalkeeper agrees, clearly just wants the team to reconcile. But inside, Hyuk is still furious at being killed twice. Not even has the opportunity to finish his monologue of revenge when Jin grabs him by the neck again and throws him, for the last time, along the edge of the castle walls. Simply for the boldness of apologizing, when he was the one who started the fight. And with that their magician disappears, leaving the team with 1 member less. Zombies continue climbing the tower, and coincidentally, the team closest to them has another magician. The fire that is in charge of zombies on your side with ease. That's why they needed a magician, and the goalkeeper scolds Jin for not trying to reach a middle ground with him. Jin does not flinch and opens his status window to review its new limited mission. This mission is linked with another and requires it to lose first place in the mission of the 10 towers, and that it also kills 1,000 zombies on their own. For a total of 4,000 achievement points to kill 1,000 zombies would be almost impossible, considering the time they have left, but does not want to miss those 3,000 extra points. Lin looks like Jin. Try to decide what to do, and does not even try to hide how much he is judging it. So far Jin has only done what he wants to do, and despite its impressive statistics, he is still a kind of support, so it links. You can see there is no reason to try to recruit him into the Divergent Guild. The goalkeeper, however, is not even close, as calm as she is, and continues to yell at Jin, who finally tells Jin who will continue to grow like a fool. Then let him go and fight alone unexpectedly. That was Jin, as he will be able to take care of it himself, of all zombies, if they let him advance without help. Kyon tells her to stay behind her, while she takes the lead. Knows that the game is already lost, but at least feels the responsibility to act as a player. But Jin replies that it is well that he plans to take care of everything that comes from the front, while the goalkeeper and Gaon protect each other. Finally a zombie makes it to the top of the tower, and he is a blood zombie, which is different and stronger than other zombies. Its head is made of liquid, so it cannot be eliminated with physical attacks. Well, in theory, as Hen doesn't care about the rules of the game, the zombie jumps, and Hen prepares himself with a spear, and with a single clean blow, kills him by crushing his head. Gon realizes, by the fragments zombie body fires falling around it, that Jin should have access to divine power. More zombies start climbing the tower, and Jin continues to defend himself one by one with his cane. So far he has only killed 6 zombies out of 100, and still has a long way to go. As more zombies climb the tower, Jin continues to wear it alone. When it has killed more than 24, begins to realize that his biggest problem will be blood zombies. Physical attacks do not work with them. So when he sees them, releases a small amount of divine power, which allows you to eliminate them all at once. The goalkeeper's perception of Jin has changed completely, and it is difficult to deny that our protagonist really is a professional, even if he's a Gaon moron on his part. Is too stunned, as if to talk, and can only watch Jin fight in amazement. Is controlling the divine power with fluidity, and struggling without wasting it. Its level of control is already impressive, But what impresses her most is the skill and precision of Hana straight to the zombies' heads. In a matter of minutes, Jean has managed to kill more than 200 zombies, which allows it to fulfill a hidden condition called Faith of Another World, which increases its divine power from level 6 to 7. This is his other method to increase his divine power, and it seems to work. Can increase this power by using of sacred objects. In 2010, when the tutorial began on Earth, sacred objects were traded at very high prices, since they were said to contain secrets. But after 10 years nothing was ever revealed, and eventually its value fell non-stop. The divine objects of other worlds also did not have evident merits, and many people did not even know of its existence. However, there was one person who did know it. Sophia the Saint of America. She was the first to tell him how he increased his power, divine object with an otherworldly divine object. Divine power in general can be increased by using divine objects from other worlds, although that only works during the tutorial. That was the method she used to become a saint. Preserve the divine object of the other world and pray for a long time. Eventually, after doing it enough, obtain divine power. The conditions required for each object, divine, are slightly different. And it is not an easy method at all. And also because they are in such low demand, are extremely difficult to find. Thanks to this, Sophia was able to monopolize all divine objects for herself. This is very high quality information that no one else knows about. So it clearly found it in his favor. But as valuable as that information was, there were someone else who has also been buying divine objects from other worlds, which means that there is another player who also knows that secret. After Jean went back in time, visited his sister's room in the attic of the Palace of the Sword, and there he found all objects divine from other worlds that had been purchased. All his divine power had been drained, so they were empty. This means that the identity of the other player who had been collecting divine objects from other worlds was his older sister named Seanja, together with Jun Sujin, the King of the Sword. Jaeon's sister was the best support for South Korea, and a true heroine. How he died is a completely different story. Among all the divine objects she left behind, Jen found a steel bar, which had been reduced to an object of rank A. According to the description of the object, was especially perfect to break zombie spells, although after so much use, had been demoted to rank, and there was not much power left divine to absorb, yet it was still resistant. So it was the perfect weapon for hitting down things. Still under pressure for his incredible physique and level of control, impressive, the goalkeeper notices that another tower has fallen. We're in the top 5. But in his emotion he does not realize that a zombie is approaching. Stealthily to him, Gaon draw his sword quickly and cut the zombie before he can attack the goalkeeper. For his posture and the way he uses his sword, Jean immediately recognizes who he is known as the Sword of the Cute Plum Blossom. And was famous for being the interim queen of the sword. However, he did not have a good ending in his past life. Died at the hands of the former Sword King, who now calls himself Raiwei. Seems to have managed to meet a person quite important very early in this new life. Gaon calls his attention and asks him if you can join him in the fight. If they fight together, we'll be able to point to a higher rank who check your status window, and sees that they are barely in 5th place. There is still a long way to go, and there is not much time available. If it is the Sword of the Plum Blossom, no, she'll be fine without him. But one of its missions is to get the 1st place in this game, who decides to leave the zombies climbing the tower in charge of her and the goalkeeper, and then jumps down the side of the tower before they have even the opportunity to notice what he is doing. As it falls to the ground, concentrates all its power divine on the king and hits it against the ground, causing a massive explosion of energy that flies all the zombies in the air. Thanks to Jean's enormous contribution, his team manages to finish in 1st place on the mission and emerge as the last survivors of the. Thanks to this, it completes its limited mission. Although he fails to complete the mission linked to killing 1,000 zombies by himself, the game ends and Jean starts the process of teleporting back home. Before leaving, his colleagues' team members come to congratulate him on his work. Well done, that loaded easily and ended up being the Zeke in spite of everything. And the goalkeeper is more than enthusiastic about the idea to team up with him again. But while the goalkeeper flatters our protagonist, Gaon can't help but be shocked by the enormous amount of damage done to its support, despite being 1 level below it. Think this has to be some kind of mistake of the system. Cannot hide how surprised she is that she is. The goalkeeper decides to disconnect first, leaving her alone in Jean's She takes the opportunity to approach before he disconnects. And he even calls it by its name, which surprises Jean, because as far as he remembers, should not have met. Still, but Gan doesn't care. With the potential and achievements it has demonstrated in recent missions, can clearly see that this man is someone they need in the Divergent Guild. As a member of the Divergent Guild, has to recruit him no matter what. But now that he has it in front of her, and asking for his phone number, suddenly his calm expression transforms in absolute panic when he realized that he had jumped too many steps and got too far. In the first conversation, is asking for your phone number instantly, and needs to be quickly explained before he misinterprets it. However, before I can say anything clearly, Jin is female and tells him that he does not remember your phone number at that time, then open its status window and disconnects with a quick goodbye before she can say anything else. Gaon takes a moment to ask, how can someone forget their own number? Before he realizes that it has most likely just been rejected. In the real world, it turns out that Gene really doesn't remember his old number. He used his number American for a time in his past life, and has not had time to memorize his number Korean since he was reincarnated in this new life. There is no way for me to ask others, what is your own number? So for now you will have to leave those thoughts for later. The most important thing at this moment is that he has been recruited. It seems that with all its recent demonstration, ended up standing out too much. Now that you think about it, probably should have gotten her number instead of to reject it, but has no plans to join a guild for now. For the time being, should focus on achieving as many rewards as you can through missions. I need to raise 2 levels, and also scored 1500 game points, thanks to this, but cannot buy no sacred object of that quantity. The divine objects you want to buy are much cheaper in the past than in their time, original, but they are still too costly for him. For now you have to go home, and go deeper into his sister's suicide. When you return home, note immediately a pair of yellow shoes at the entrance. He immediately realizes who is at home with him, and the impact causes him to drop his bag. They all have moments they regret for the rest of their lives, and Jean is no exception. His greatest repentance is not being able to protect his beloved niece, called Sia, in her past life. There were so many things he wanted to tell her if they met again. Remember how strong it was, and he even told him that he would protect him. And now he is standing in front of him again, alive as if nothing had happened. Above all else, what I wanted most to tell her was that I had missed her very much. Dawn, she just turned this year, and is the daughter of Yoon Seojin, and his older sister was not at home when he returned in time, because I was in a fast group. But she was the only one who won, leaving early for obvious reasons. How he was born when his sister worked to maintain them. Jean was in charge of taking care of Seiya. Since I was a child, now his mother is gone, and his father is suddenly defecting to Japan and changing his name. Now that everyone else has left, the only family left is each other. At this time, she is the most important person in her life. And all this happened because of the sudden Jin Soo-hyun's decision recently. Seiya contacted his father to ask him that he had caused him to change sides so suddenly, and he told her that he had fallen in love, announced it to him by chance. And although she got upset during the call, he seemed too calm with the situation. Asked him what he was supposed to do now that he was going to disappear. He even asked him if he was really abandoning her for no reason, and he calmly thought that he was abandoning because that was the condition that his new love put on him. Without saying another word or saying goodbye, hung up the call and ended the relationship with his daughter in a single stroke. That is incredibly miserable. But Jean always knew he was that kind of man. An irresponsible renegade willing to abandon his only daughter and his entire country by one woman. Because of that, the innocent Seo was left completely alone. And in another life he ended up taking his own life. Seiya turns around and notices that the portrait family is broken. Hijin immediately runs to apologize, thinking that despite everything Jin Seojin did, is still his father. But to her surprise, she reveals that she wanted to break it herself, then tells him it's okay and makes his best face strong. This is how Seiya has always been, either when his mother died or when her father betrayed her and left forever, maintained a bright appearance and a positive attitude, caring more about her uncle than about herself. But even though he knows that she can take care of herself, no longer wants it to have to be like this. From now on, even if it is already grown, he wants to protect and care for her. She closes her eyes and allows him to hug her, but its moment is interrupted when she tells him he is sway. Elsewhere, in the metropolitan city of Seoul in Gangnam, within the headquarters of the Divergent Guild, Spotter can no longer hold back her laughter after his bodyguard tells him your encounter with Jean the beautiful cutie. A man was asked for his number, and he rejected it, and for Kalmo used the most pathetic excuse of all, saying that he didn't remember his number. The laughter of Hanno makes Gaon accept that he may not be as attractive as Lee have believed that it is, although that could not be further from the truth. Simply does not realize of how popular it really is. Even the few people they can't avoid look at her and whisper about how cool she looks. Both head to the company's restroom and feels especially relaxed there. Both are there to discuss what your plans will be with respect to the recruitment of Jean. Have to recruit him or her, and even the high managers are pressuring it to get it to join forces to the equipment as quickly as possible. As they converse, I've noticed a notification on your phone. Someone is broadcasting live and wonders who it could be, as there should be no major championship today. The person who transmits is usually a betting streamer who continues from time to time. She calls it strategic analysis, but it is nothing more than simple gambling. However, who is conducting the transmission? This time it's not who you expected that on Jen, and is starting an impromptu transmission without any kind of announcement. On the other side, Jean is the camera. While she advises him from off camera, Heian struggles to understand why Jean appears on a betting channel, but Han is more focused on the title of the stream. Jean claims to be the Sword King's brother-in-law. Stream viewers are also confused by the announcement. Sudden, in the comments, flood the transmission by asking what is going on with the statue. Behind him is the statue of the twin swords, which proves that it is in the attic of the Palace of the Sword. Now that the transmission has formally begun, Fu tells Sala to step aside, then channels power in his foot and hits the ground, cracking the floor underneath it and making the base of the statue to break. Then uses his fist to smash the statue, surprising everyone who is watching and attracting thousands more viewers to the stream. Now that it has caused a great impact and captured the attention of the public, it's time to start really talking about on the naturalization of Yun Sojin, the king of the sword in Japan. The platform where it is transmitting is called BattleToon, a transmission system linked to the battle system in a platform with an absolute market worldwide. As part of the battle system, Jean can also receive BattleTube-linked missions that include achieve a certain number of spectators, subscribers, and visualizations. Thanks to this, has another form to obtain points of achievement-generating impact on the platform. And destroy the statue of the twin swords is definitely a way to make online noise for Jean. There is no better situation than this to capitalize as many rewards as possible. As more spectators continue to arrive, as well, continues to accumulate points of achievement by the multiplicity it achieves. The interest tanto, people are still in shock at the daring to break a statue so important. And as was to be expected, a wave of no likes begins to arrive. There are also certain commentators who have the same profile picture, a black logo with two crossed swords. These people are the family of the Sword King. And just thinking about them makes the eye. Jean trembles with rage that fan club, use fanatic, was what led Seiya to his death in his past life. Although they were the ones who most supported the King of the Sword, his resentment grew after his move to Japan. And eventually that rage began to focus on the only blood relative of Jun Sojin, which is Jun Seola. His terrible words and his ire always came to Seola, no matter how far he tried to walk away, and in the end, lost his life because of his actions. How they needed someone to turn their hatred into, pointed to his innocent niece. But this time, Jean will not allow this to happen. If they need someone to point the finger at, conquest will become that goal. Our protagonist clarifies, recognized her and tells everyone to listen carefully, then hit, once again, the statue that is stilling, making sure that all eyes are on him. Then makes it clear, Idris Raj's his former Sword King will not return. As it continues its announcement, people are beginning to recognize him for his past achievements, specifically for the Bronze League tutorial, where they were able to position themselves in first place, despite all adversities. But the fact that it is still in bronze recognized his credibility as an authority figure. Jean ignores comments and shows irrefutable evidence to the camera. Approach your phone to the microphone and plays a recording. This recording is from a call between Rei and Seiya, after the King of the Sword decided to become a naturalized Japanese citizen. In the so-called lightning, and openly states that the reason he leaves Korea is because he found someone he loves, admits that it abandons the country for her, and that she even leaves his only daughter without any remorse. That was the condition that his new love imposed to accept it. Now that your message has been conveyed. Who stops the smile? People are speechless. But most are not convinced. At this point it seems more like street gossip, and not concrete proof that their king of the sword has abandoned them. To further reinforce its point, she appears on camera to continue with the end. She states that her father said he would pass him the palace of the sword as an inheritance, but does not want to accept anything that comes with someone who left his country and his family. So instead, plans to donate Sword Palace to Korea, in the hope that this donation will be converted into a great support for the growth of young people, Korean players. While she speaks, Who smiles as he sees his plan run perfectly. Half an hour before him, it suggested to him for the first time to say Who will give the house as a gift. Like any other, she was confused by such an idea. Why I would want to give away everything they have. Cannot tell him the real reason. And not even is sure he can convince her even if he tried. After all, as they will not sell the building but simply give it away. Seems completely crazy, but Jin needs her to accept. For their own good. In his past life, after Yoon Sojin destroyed Korea by becoming the representative of Japan, the fury of Koreans grew so much that all their assets, including the palace of the sword where she lived, was left homeless and could not stand the harassment and the threats of the family of the king of the sword. At the end, ended up taking his own life. Since they are going to take this house away from them anyway, the best is donate it and win the favor of the Korean people, thus ensuring Sea's safety. But for Sea, his uncle is nothing more than a bum who drinks all day long at home. And he certainly can't tell you who has returned from the future, yet he has to convince her. Sorprendentment, while he was still looking for a way to convince her, she accepted the plan on her own. He even had to make sure twice that he really agreed, because even he thought it was a meaningless idea. The reason for which she decided to trust him is because she knows that Jin would not suggest something like this without an important reason. Even more so, I haven't seen that decided side of him in a long time. So he decided to follow his judgment. Thanks to this admirable determination, Jin trying to turn his idea into reality. That does not mean that problems will not arise. Yet the family of the Sword King is still furious and is calling Jin directly a fraud and a swindler. That's just what he wants. To focus on it and not disturb Salah. But this is still not enough to close the deal. To ensure that everything is perfectly sealed, needs to drive the last nail into the coffin. Jin stands back in front of the camera and calls Yoon Sojin directly. Tells them that the excuse he gave to leave was for a woman, but the truth is that he is a failure. Seal can only observe, as clearly this was not in the script they had prepared and does not know how to react. Comments on the transmission explode. Some people can't believe he said that, while others cannot avoid laughing at how absurd his statement sounds. Jin continues to cause it, stating that the only reason why Yoon So-hyun he left because he knew he would have no future in Korea, even gone and have. Cannot avoid sensitivity to the things he is saying next. Jin finishes off by saying that Yoon Sojin should stay calm in Japan, because they will soon be seen, and then it will crush it. Transmission ends after that, and they both return home. To cool down, Seal confronts his uncle for all the chaos it has caused online because of his statements. Both Korea and Japan are in an uproar over what he said, but Jin is not worried. Assures him that nothing will happen, and that he should ignore all advertising that this is bringing to avoid stress unnecessarily because of their recent actions. She can't help but notice that something looks like different in his uncle, as if he had become a person completely different from night to morning. But it's not surprising that I feel that way. After all, it is not possible to act normally after having died and returned to the past. He asks her if everything she saw in him was a lazy guy who only drank all day long, and Sela tries to retract his words. Although I did understand that before. As they speak, the doorbell rings, and Jin already knows who he is, although I didn't expect them to come so soon. Now that things have come to this point, it's time to start making some money. Me interest and in Tokyo, Japan. Sojin watch the news while sitting next to a woman sleeping in bed. The news chronicles the events recent years and state that the relationship between Korea and Japan alone will worsen due to its Japanese nationalization. Everything has gotten worse since it became known that he did all this for a woman. Woman wakes up and Sojin turns off the transmission, having woken her up. But she assures him that she no longer needs to sleep, is more worried about him, and for the difficult times you will have to face. But lightning there stops her and tells her that she should not keep calling him Sojin and has now taken his name. And this is how he wants to be called from now on. This woman Shuru clings to him and assures him that he is still Yoon Seojin the #1 player of Korea. And that the truth has not changed, but there is a strange power in his words. And it seems that what he says has a weight beyond simple statements. Then lures him to himself, and they kiss, reminding him that he is now his Jin Seojin, back with our protagonist. Opens the door, and in front of him is the man I was waiting for. This man is a government official, and it seems that he and Jin at least get to know each other a little bit. His name is Park Hyun-ik, and he is the boss of the tournament department in South Korea. In his past life, after Yoon Seojin left, the department stopped coming. But it seems that Jin made so much noise today that they can no longer ignore him. However, although the government stopped coming, this man still took the time to take care of him and seal now that the stage is ready and all the players have arrived. It's time for Jin to start taking what he needs. All three sit down to talk, and Unique gets straight to the point, knows that they will not be able to bring back the King of the Sword, and the government knows it too, that they can't let the citizens find out. Still, the match between Korea and Japan will soon be held, and need the rejection of the people. It is on high by then Jin. He can now see where this conversation is going, and tells Unique to the point of stopping being around the bush. What they really want is for Jin withdraws donation from the Palace of the Sword, because if the government accepts the donation, will be a recognition official that the King of the Sword will not return. Unique is surprised that Jin has been so easily right, and even he begins to believe that Jin has really become a person. Completely new Jin's. Of old was nothing more than an alcoholic, unemployed gambling addict. Leaving aside his surprise, Unique confirms what Jin said, but explains that they have not yet given up completely on the return of the King of the Sword. So instead of giving up ownership altogether, the government wants to propose strict management. This means that the property will change to another name, but they will continue to have decisions on related matters. A way to ensure that they can be prepared in case the King of the Sword returns. The government also wants both to continue residing in the Palace of the Sword, which in the end turns this situation to the mutual benefit of both parties. Unique slides a document to them with more details on the agreement and asks them to read it calmly and consider it. It seems that it actually have put a lot of thought and consideration into this. Jin intended to deliver it without further ado, but if they are willing to offer something like this, then it's even better for them. However, in return, there is a favor Jin would like to ask for. Time passes after that event and is coming. Another fight in the tournament. A streamer named Golden Light starts broadcasting, and viewers will be able to immediately begin to arrive en masse to BattleTube to watch it. The streamer is presented, proudly standing on the statue of the Colosseum, and welcomes everyone to its transmission. The players begin to appear on the while Golden Light jumps to join them and continue to entertain its viewers. Someone donates to the stream and asks to give birth to Golden to teach you a lesson to bronze players. All others watch with annoyance as Golden Light dances to entertain its audience as thank you for the donation. Are clearly not so happy to see him in his living room, as are your followers. And that is because under that skirt, innocent intentions are hidden rather twisted. Became popular for his charisma and energy, but he is also an troll used to be. He a respected Gold League player, but it intentionally to bronze for the content, calling for a journey into the depths. Does not care about the game itself, just have fun, which makes it the pinnacle of trolls. Although it is in the lower league, his equipment and statistics remain gold ring, and is known to harass and kill bronze players weaker than him. Now that his wild fans are here, are watching it with anticipation. It is time for Golden Light look for your first victim, observes the shortage of players, and finally fix it. It's look at a possible goal for generating content. Without losing its rhythm, it runs toward Jin with a microphone in hand, arrested for interviewing the man that recently became the center of attention. At this point, Jin has many nicknames and has been receiving attention everywhere. On the other hand, Jin is confused about who this bright guy is. Clearly a BattleTube streamer, and is too for your taste. But now that you think about it, there are quite a few BattleTube achievements that you have not yet completed. Since he has the opportunity, Jin decides start its own broadcast for its viewers. Completely ignores the boy and opens its own transmission window to start transmitting. The Golden Light viewers also notice the brand live on the head of Jin and realize that our protagonist is also transmitting, which causes them to begin to abandon Golden Light transmission to go to the Jin Light transmission. Our bright boy cannot avoid trembling at the realization that he practically advertised Jin for free. Since things have reached this point, it needs to find a way to win back your audience. As he thinks about it, he receives a notification from someone with an username with the King of the Sword who encourages him to kill Jin to finish in last place. The reward for completing this feat is 2,000 game points. 1 game point is equivalent to approximately $1.01. So it's a mission with a reward of 2 million people. Who initiated the donation are not others, more than family members of the King of the Sword. When Golden Light does not immediately accept, other members of that family join in and continue to increase the reward. It is clear that these people have a great grudge against Jin, but he had no idea it was to this extent. The reward continues to increase, exceeds the 30,000 points of play, and even reaches 40,000 game points. But unfortunately for Golden Light, the remaining players are called to the field, which means that the donations are stop at 42,000 game points. In spite of the already absurd amount of money offered, Golden Light is felt disappointed that they did not reach 50,000. One of the members of the family of the Sword King promises to donate 10,000 additional game points if he manages to defeat Jin, which finally motivates Golden Light to move with determination. Its target has already been set. As soon as the light combat begins, Doretta prepares to launch itself against an unsuspecting Jin. Uses one of his skills called Load, which accelerates the user's body at high speed, and in an instant, behind Jin's with sword raised. The attack connects, but Jin manages to block it without any problem. Sorprendentiment is using another of his strange weapons, this time a deck that is part of a cooking game, and that it is an extraterrestrial sacred object of the rank of King, is still surprised that despite having blocked with all its power, the Golden Light weapon has survived the attack. Since things have reached this point, Jin also summons a sword out of simple courtesy. In a matter of seconds it achieves knock down the Golden Light with simple but precise blows, and the spectators notice that he is using Chide's sword, which should not normally be possible. For someone in the Bronze League, is also using White Sacred Flames of Power, Divine, which implies that your class is support, regardless of how you have done so. Jin has obtained the First Blood, using a Sacred Kitchen Knife of the rank of, also part of the set of Divine Kitchen Weapons. However, even though they have shamefully defeated him, Golden Light is not yet out of action. Somehow, manages to revive thanks to an object called Crucifix of the Resurrection, which can only be used once, and is not valid in national leagues, promotion matches or guild championships. Although it revives, no longer makes sense, because the objective was not only to kill Jin but to finish in last place. And when he dies first, that is no longer possible. Despite the obvious disappointment of his rears, Golden Light is determined to redeem himself by defeating Jin. Unfortunately for him, who is the same of deciding to erase that smile from his face in a matter of seconds, who knocks it down again, getting a double casualty by accident. And as he walks away from the dying streamer, think of the object he used to revive in the future. No one used it because the resurrection process had certain flaws. Put that aside, day 8 has been a hectic day than usual, probably because of the spectators who came to see the game. Today's viewers are elves, and it seems that everyone is watching Jin. Our protagonist does not like them in particular, since the elves played a role important in the fall of mankind. At this time there is nothing you can do about them. So the best is focus on enemies in front of him. By the looks of it, the other players are avoiding it, giving it a lot of space, almost as if they treated him like a stinker. When he looks at them, everyone flees in terror is normal. After all, has just destroyed a golden player twice. So they clearly know they can't compete with him. This is not good news for our protagonist, as it means that its efficiency at home will calm down just when it will finally had found a sacred object of the rank of. If you want, comply with the conditions of manifestation of these objects are going to have to fight much more. While trying to figure out what to do, he appears a notification in your status window, and Jin smiles when he reads it. It looks like things are about to get better. Has received a mission to submit the goblins that have gathered around the goblin champion. Thanks to this he will be able to fulfill his combat quota, even though the players are running away from him. In an instant is surrounded by several goblins and looks like the outnumbered. But in an open and the of an eye are the goblins who flee in terror while Jin lunges at them at high speed. He unscream, asking for help while they are beaten and stabbed with the kitchen equipment of Jin. Thanks to his constant combat, the kitchen game sacred begins to react to its actions. All this is thanks to the fact that read the descriptions of the objects before you start using them, must break their heads and rip their hearts out, and has to do it in that order, specific for objects to react correctly. Fortunately, discovered all this before the end of the game. But with the way things are going, it's taking too long. If I had known a little earlier, there would have been some more goblin left to use their weapons. But at least it's not quite over. One more goblin left to eliminate, and this one is much more threatening than the others. This beast is the goblin champion, and compared to normal goblins, is much larger and stronger. Despite its size and strength, a good blow with the kitchen club is enough to take down the goblin champion. Then Jean takes advantage and stabs him in the heart. Despite its size, he is still just a big goblin. And with that, the mission has been completed, receiving 500 achievement points as a reward, in addition to obtaining a point of power, divine in the process. However, he overused the objects. The range of the weapons was reduced to E, so it should only be able to obtain divine power once again. Fly hunting is too slow. So now you will need to catch players instead. But they are too far away from him, so if they don't come to him, we'll have to go to them himself. The commentators who had been watching the transmission in silence all this time, they finally come out from his hiding place to talk about how terrifying he looks. Now, Dean, but of all those who are watching the stream, there is one person which is much more annoyed by what you are seeing on your screen. It is Golden Light, who observes the stream of Jean from the outside, notes one comment in particular that states that Jean is 1,000 times better than him, although it bothers him how they are talking about him. Is even more anxious for the beast that is Jean from his fight with the goblin. The system has calculated its estimated statistics. Its average strength is 35, while the average of a Bronze League player is 25. And somehow Jean is 10 points above. None of this makes sense, and Golden Light even begins to think that Jean must be using some kind of traps or hacks. Lying in bed, mourning his misfortune, and the beast, Broken, that is our protagonist, hears screams of terror coming from his monitor. Looks up just in time to see Jean hitting someone in the face with his club. In a matter of seconds, Jean has defeated multiple players at the same time, and the total combat is completely unbalanced. In a few seconds, Jean has killed countless players with ease, reducing the total number of participants to a minuscule figure. The remainder realize that it is not time to fight each other. This is the time to join and defeat this user. Cheater, a magician, and an archer are the first in uniting in an attempt to take down Jean, but its attacks are easily blocked or deflected. After a while, they stop attacking completely. Seeing that nothing they do works against Jean, don't even try to defend themselves, only observe it with disbelief. Before he approaches and drags them out of their misery, Jean has achieved a total of 10 casualties, and its spectators are freaking out after seeing the incredible feat of defeating all those players. Thanks to its large number of deaths, the set of kitchen reacts again and gains another point of power, divine. Then the objects degrade back to rank 5, becoming practically useless. Also completes a hidden mission that required to achieve 10 deaths in the Colosseum, which gives him 5,000 additional achievement points as a reward. With divine power and points of achievement in hand, Jean got everything he wanted. But something is still missing. Needs something definitive and powerful to increase its strength to the maximum. Then realizes that he has received an epic mission that demands that he find the Queen of Shadows located close to the spectators on the map of the Colosseum and cause it to go on a mission. Epic is not supposed to appear in the Bronze League, but most importantly are the rewards. 50,000 achievement points, in addition to the interest of the Queen of Shadows, at his being absolute, representing a star, and our divine entities in the tournament. The interest of that is equivalent to that of a sponsor, and help to acquire skills that a normal player would not be able to obtain. It seems that something that should only be possible in the league diamond is happening to you right now. If that is the case, then you need beat the Queen of Shadows at all costs. If even a single takes its side, the others will also be interested in it. However, with the amount of elves watching it from the side, we'll really be able to find the Queen of Shadows among them. Out of the game, the world is reacting with astonishment to the achievement of Jean, the record of 10 casualties. Jean's at the Colosseum was the first in the country since the incision. The news spread quickly through social networks, and as a result we will be able to around 10,000 subscribers, and its transmissions up to 4,000 simultaneous spectators. Those of the family of the King of the Sword who were waiting for the fall of Jean instead became his followers. Now all resentment was directed towards Golden Light, who unintentionally became the springboard for the Jean towards fame. Practically went down the pipe after recent events, and is struggling to find a way to fix it. as he does not have many options. Golden Light decides to board the train of Jean and become one of his followers. From now on, hopes to become the editor of Jean and make him the biggest star on the platform. Battle 2 back in the Palace of the Sword will be. Can no longer stop looking at his uncle in disbelief after the fight he saw in the afternoon. Can't believe his uncle has become so strong. Almost begins to feel sorry for the other players, since this was practically the same, than to ruin the game on purpose. Many people also wanted to donate in the stream of Jean, but he had blocked the donation link. In large part because he decided to make the transmission spontaneously, and had not configured it from in advance as you have not yet got it ready. Sella advises Hen to raise the minimum amount of donation. It will be difficult for you to concentrate if donations do not stop arriving. So it is best to put it in an amount high so that you do not receive Ken's. Agrees and decides set it at 10,000 game points, which is 10 million won, while she wonders if really 10 million won is appropriate. Ken is more focused on thinking about the mission, Epic of the Queen of Shadows who received has to find that figure, rejection and provoke it, but it does not occur to him how to find her among so much sadness. Notice the expression concentrated on his face, and asks him if he wants his help. His attitude reminds him a lot of that of his mother, and Jean smiles at him because there is nothing wrong with accepting help. Gets up and decides to tell him what is bothering him. Tells him about the epic mission and the Queen of Shadows, and even she has no idea who she might be. The only thing they know is certain to be among the public seals. Decides to watch replays of the games, to look for it among the audience, with her taking care of it. Things should move forward more easily even though it still feels bad about having to ask him for help. Find the Queen of Shadows would be like looking for riding a bird now that it has distracted her. Should have enough time to deal with the outstanding issues that have been postponing. With all the achievement points it has accumulated, purchase a new classroom. And now is the time to add a new class and obtain new powers. Has 3 options to choose from: warrior, archer, or magician among them. Decides to become a magician. As soon as the new class is added, begins to feel a new power flowing from his heart. Is different from power, divine, and gives access to new abilities. The reason he chose the wizard class after the support one is for unique statistic that can only be obtained by having both classes. This new ability is called strength. Before its regression, I used to listen to a man talk while he was drunk. One day, during one of these e-filled digressions, he told Jen many unnecessary things, as the fact that he would have recognized it as American if he had been naturalized earlier. But that day he also spoke of something unusual, his ability, strength he gained by perfectly combining the power divine with man. It is not an easy task, and others could not even try since Male is the only player in the world with 2 classes. This is something that no one else can get. And the only reason why man has it because he has 2 state windows, which is your gift of ranks. Jean originally asked him if it was okay to tell him that information, but at the end of the day Male, I was sure that I could tell anyone in the world, because he is the only one capable of having 2 classes. He was, no doubt, but what he said was not a lie. Strength is a power, overwhelming, that completely dominates the space. But now Male is no longer the only one with this ability. Jean knows the requirements and has now met them. This ability was the one that led to Male to the first place in the world ranking, despite its terrible control and poor use of it. So he, as Jean, wants to be prepared for what is to come in the future. Must ensure that you obtain this ability at all costs. To obtain the power, needs to concentrate power divine in his hands and direct the flow of the mana from his heart to his hands, where both powers can be combined. If he succeeds in combine them perfectly and let nothing escape, will make it. For a moment, it seems that his attempt worked, but the power, churning in his hand, throws it against the wall after a small explosion. Seems to have failed this time, and cannot retain power in his hands only with strength. Must be missing something. May need more mana, or a higher level. But something is definitely missing. The problem is that he can't maintain power in your hands forever. So maybe the problem is in the place where it is gathering power. As it cannot hold it in its hands, the best option would be to keep it inside your body. If it can combine divine power, starting at the Dantian top with central Dantian mana, then you can stabilize both with the power of the lower Dantian, provided that the 2 have difficulty mixing. This should lead to a form perfect in which nothing moves. If it manages to compress it in that state, should be able to unlock the new power. Decides to try, and the reaction on your body is immense. Cannot avoid expressions of pain as long as the power floods your body. A system notification appears. informing him that he has begun to attempt the unification of the three in advance, but almost immediately there is a warning informing you that has exceeded the limits it can withstand, and that if it continues it will die below. Listens to his uncle playing as pain overcomes him, and gets up to see what's going on. And continues to suffer the immense pain for attempting to merge the three dantian to do so, and thus merge the divine power with the mana and use force, must apply force in a manner sub to consolidate them. The conditions for unification are very strict, and it is required to be able to use perfectly all three, that of very different natures. In addition to all the statistics of the person, must be above 100 to make the process fluid. If you are far from those standards and you try to unify the three dantian, you may no lie. Runs to his uncle's room, while the sounds of their suffering become stronger. Calls him while hurrying, but he doesn't answer. Finally arrives in his room, and finds him in good condition. He states that he was screaming like that because it gave him a headache, but it is evident that something much worse should be occurring. She clearly does not believe him, although he tries to take it as a joke. Stop joking as soon as he realizes it, that she has really been upset by what she did. Suddenly Seiya begins to cry while telling him that she was really scared for him, thought something had happened to him, and that's why he ran to his room so fast. Jen realizes that he may have ruined it for not thinking more about Seiya at that time, but now that at least it seems to be fine. She asks him again if he is really okay. He decides to take it seriously and tells her yes, it's okay, then apologizes to her for having worried her so much. Seiya wipes tears from her eyes and hits him in the chest, trying to pretend it's all right now that it seems he's safe with that. She walks away to continue searching for the Queen of Shadows, and Jean watches her leave with a smile. Definitely cannot afford to show his weak side so often, at least not for the sake of stamping in other news. The consolidation of the three NTN failed because he lacks so much experience as a level, but still managed to gain power that he wished by fusing divine power and mana. Jain has now managed to exchange them for the single statistic known as force. The link that connects the three dantian remains weakly, but it is still present. However, when reviewing its status window, discovers something strange. The strength statistic number is unusual. Just obtained the ability, but it starts at level 12, as the link between the three dantian remains, albeit weakly. Power statistics, martial and strength will share their values. This means that if it increases its power statistics, martial at 1 point, your strength statistic will also increase the test, raising power martial at 14 level, and strength statistics also rises to level 14. This is practically a trick. Having strength on its own is already a great advantage, but now you can easily improve it however you want. If these are the benefits of a weak bond, then how amazing will be the benefits of consolidating completely all three in advance. No matter how much he is thrilled by the great increase in power, has to leave it at that for now. If you try to unify them again, could die in the process. Has already gotten what he wanted, so there is no need to tempt by luck. Then decides to test a magician's skill. Now that you have the class, summons a fireball and a small flame appears. While the system informs you that you do not have enough mana to keep big spells. Is a lovely little flame, but he definitely can't use it in combat. The next day, Hen wakes up in the sunlight, entering through the window. As soon as he opens his eyes, the system informs you that you have earned 10 points of power, divine, and that from now on, cannot obtain more power, divine of sacred objects of rank or lower. May only obtain it from sacred objects of rank 2 or higher. The night before, bought 2 objects and slept with them next to him, in the hope of receiving a power boost. But it seems that his limitations finally reached him. From now on, will have to sell what he has let in the second-hand market to make a profit. Leaves his room and calls to Seiya to see if she is awake, but gets no answer. So he goes down to look for it, and finds it, sitting on the sofa with headphones, positions and a laptop on the lap because of dark circles under the eyes, under his eyes, and his tired expression. It is evident that he spent the night awake. She tells him that she spent all night looking for the Queen of Shadows though. Jean is sorry to have put her in that situation. It seems that his efforts were not in vain. Shows him a fragment of a channel called a mature chamber of other species. A channel of the platform of battle transmissions that focuses on to observe the other species that appear as spectators at their games. Use their get called scope that allows them to make zoom with your transmission cameras. Thanks to that I know already. I would like to find something interesting in the replay of the game in which Jean recently participated in the spectator area. Sitting in what appear to be specially made thrones there are two elves that certainly meet the criteria to be queens by their high-ranking appearance. One of these elves in particular is a dark elf that clearly looks like some kind of real gene lineage. Agrees that there may be some truth to it in what she found, but it is still too early to draw conclusions. For now, Seiya decides that he will continue to look a little further to see if you can find something useful among other recordings, who for his part is sure that it would not be found so easily. Salat assures him that he will continue to review more videos, even some from abroad of the following day, and the way he talks sounds almost professional. He even offers to edit some of his videos for him to upload it to the platform, Battle2. She knows how to make videos, since he used to watch his father's family for fun. The mention of his father makes Jean freeze and think of him one more time. Can't believe that someone has really abandoned his daughter like this, for no apparent reason, only 2 days before. During his conversation with Unique, the government official revealed to him that he could know the name of the woman who stole from the Sword King. His name is Ben Sishiru, and is the possessor of the gift of rank, called a woman of unparalleled beauty. It is possible that Yoon Sojin has fallen in love with his ability, and that is also what the government believes. This is a new development even for Jean, but revelations don't stop there. Unique warns Jean that the beauty woman skill, unparalleled, goes beyond of simple mental control, and may even shape a person's thoughts. Something similar has happened several times before, where rising stars from Korea end up naturalizing in Japan. It is quite possible that there will not be restrictions on using this gift, which means that she could appear at any time and try to seduce another strong player. After that conversation, Dean continued to search for more information about Eidos and Shrew, but it is as if the internet had been completely cleaned of any most likely trace of it. Is that Japan is managing it with extreme care. That's why Jean can't find out anything at this time. But if what Park Unique says is true, then Jean will also have to be very cautious. There is a possibility that they have already started to move. While thinking about all this, a plane lands at a Korean airport, and on the wing, it can be read that he belongs to the self-defense force, Neo. Eventually, time passes, and it's time for another important event in the life of this small family. Seal waits at the door for her uncle, who seems to be taking his time to prepare. If they keep this up, they will finally be late. Dean finishes his preparations and goes out to meet him, wears hair combed backwards, and is dressed in an elegant suit, ready to welcome your new guests. The two climb into the elevator, and during the descent, Seiya is visibly nervous. Jean tells him to relax and not to worry about anything, but Seiya can't help but feel a little anxious. This is your first public appearance, officer, after the incident with his father. Jean reminds him that there is no reason to worry about what they think the others, since they have done nothing wrong. Finally arrive to the lobby of the Palace of the Sword and encounter a large shortage of people. Almost as soon as they come out of the elevator, he receives them, Park Unique, who tells them that everything Jean asked for is ready, so you can enter immediately and start the procedure. Jean thanks the advisor for your help and affection, in which he will be in charge of everything until the end of the event. This is the favor Jean asked him for at the time, when they discussed the state of the King of the Sword and his goods. Who will? I would like them to organize an auction of the Sword King's collection, where their most beloved objects would be sold, and other possessions. The objective of this entire auction is to attract Japan, and Jean also made sure to choose specific objects for this purpose. The main article is the battle hero Yoon Sojin and all the battle data stored in it. It is likely that if Japan appears, that is precisely the object they are trying to achieve. Depending on the situation, the King of the Sword himself could intervene to try to regain the battle shield. But whatever you do, Korean citizens will be seen forced to face the reality that the King of the Sword is gone, and will most likely not return. Yumi silently listens to the plan of Jean and notice that it is almost as if he could see the future. This is your last chance to change public opinion, and that is why Jean calls on reporters to provide special attention to the self-defense force table as they walk to the main hall. Some people break into the building and try to call Seiya to stop. Security guards at the door stop them, and a group of people states that they are relatives of Seiya and that they are related to her. These people are his aunts and uncles, and have come to try to stop it from starting the auction and sell the precious objects of the King of the Sword. Nor do they try to hide the fact that they believe that Jean forced her to do all this. Continue to launch insults against Jean, but she steps forward and stops them. After all, Her aunts and uncles were expelled from the Palace of the Sword from the beginning for using his father's name. To the other people, she knows that the real reason why they have suddenly appeared is because they want to keep their father's money. Now that he is no longer, she knows what she is doing. Since all his father left behind is her, and they have no right to discuss it with her. You know it makes no sense to talk to them. And with nothing more to say, turns around and walks away, ordering the guards to expel them as quickly as possible. While the intruders continue to try to open up, step by force, Jean tells Seiya that it was great. That actually knows how to defend himself despite all that has happened. All three finally arrive at the lobby lounge where they will take the auction held. And the area is already full of news reporters, as well as those interested in the articles. As soon as they enter through the doors, reporters immediately start taking pictures of him and try to ask you questions. Also bombard Seiya with an avalanche of photographs and questions without even giving him time to respond. Jean, tired of the constant, uses the ability to force to destroy the cameras and make to stop working. Now that the noise has finally stopped, who reminds them that they are at an auction event, not at a press conference. With everyone finally calm and in their seats, is preparing to kick off the event. 3 objects have been prepared to be delivered during this auction. The first is the championship of the Yun's Hun tournament that reduces the sensation of pain by 99%. Also includes all the data saved by the user, and finally, the combat analysis is done by the Yun Sojin and analysis of the players of high rank of Eastern Asia. The data of the King of the Sword is very valuable, and the analysis is going to be very useful, especially because soon will be held on Tuesday between Korea and Japan. By the murmurs in the audience, Jean can tell that no one wants to let it go. These objects, the data, analytical studies of a high-level player, are not something to be achieved anywhere. As soon as he finishes speaking, someone raises their hand from the public and Jean immediately recognizes it. Is presented as Yulai, Self-Defense Force Recruitment Manager. EO of Japan immediately offers 5 billion yen for all auction lots. Also requests a private meeting with Jian, and Seiya. His intentions are incredibly obvious, and doesn't even try to hide what he really wants. Of that meeting, Jian does not want to get into this kind of game, and tells him directly that if he has anything to tell them, can do it right there in front of everyone. With recent events, this is neither the time nor the place to accept private meetings. Ted wipes the sweat from his forehead nervously about the way in which Jean stares at him and then warns that if he continues to act so aggressively, someone else could intervene immediately. The bodyguard that was silently behind Ted throws himself forward in an eye and places his sword against the neck of Jean. His name is Adeo, and although it is not comparable to the King of the Sword, remains a formidable player. Their threats are not even well disguised, but Jean doesn't flinch at this cheeky copy of Jonghyun. Everything that happens next happens in an instant. 1 second the sword of Sadeo is in front of Jean, and the next one is ours. Protagonist gives him a clean punch in the jaw that makes it wobble backwards. Wobbles for a moment, but then his anger takes hold of it and prepares for land his sword with the intention of fighting. However, Jean calmly places one hand on his chest and reminds him that the auction is being broadcast live on its channel of BattleTube for everyone. There is no way she can wield their weapon while everyone are watching. However, it makes you quickly calms the situation with laughter and a wave of the hand. Hanged personally by the harshness of his bodyguard and is tiled in his name. In spite of that, insists on its offer of 5 billion yen. And money should also include the private meeting requested by, but this time wants to hear an answer directly from her. For the possessions of the Sword King belong to her at this time, so she is the real owner of the auction. Walks next to Jen and is heading directly towards us, informing him that the meeting private is specifically for her. Tells him that he should want to know where his father is, and Tada promises to respond any questions she has about him. As she struggles to find an answer, Tada is absolutely certain that he will accept, believes there is no way that it refuses this opportunity to talk to his own father. However, despite his arrogance, she rejects his offer bluntly. The answer leaves Tada so surprised that it even seems lose some pixels. Can't believe there are renouncing 5 billion yen. Only for a private meeting, the equivalent, 50 billion. One in Korean currency, as much as that sum is a large amount of money. She understands that Jean is right, should be cautious due to the current times. And if his father is only available in exchange for money, then she wants nothing to do with him. She is also a minor. So at the end of the day you have to do what you, Jean say. The rest of the audience sighs relief, since they thought that those valuable items would still be sold to Japan. Cannot let their guard down, and although she rejected the meeting, the self-defense force, EO can still offer an amount of money absurdity that you breathe deeply and accepts that they have rejected their proposed meeting. But even with that still maintains the offer of the 5 billion yen for items according to him. The private meeting was just an option that he himself personally added. So there is no need to cancel the offer for having been rejected. States that he was instructed to offer this amount from the beginning by the king of the sword himself. Also delivers to Seiya a written letter personally by Jin Seo-hyun with a lightning crime seal. Just seeing that name makes you sad. While holding the letter, turns around and asks the rest of the interested parties, Koreans in the tournament, if they do not have enough money to choose with him, who knows the man's tactics very well. After all, the self-defense force recruitment manager Neo was someone who in his past life was vetted of the United States by its suspiciously effective player recruitment techniques. Foreigners. Reason why it was called Day of Japan. There is a good chance that it is deeply related with the player who uses the beauty woman's hill. Unique, Jean will have to be very careful with it. But according to the auction conditions, as no one can match the price that has been set, Jean has no choice to sign the contract with that man. The atmosphere is tense, and Japan took the objects too easily, as if they had been promised to each other before. This will undoubtedly look bad in the media, and the other attendees begin to wonder what the point was to have come in the first place. At this point, Jean just wants something to happen. Needs a point to change the course of things all of a sudden. Seiya steps ahead of the microphone and starts talking. Is reading the letter that lightning and sent him directly to the public, as well as before the thousands of people who are watching the Jean stream. On the letter, his father mentions that he found out that she wanted to give the palace of the sword and deed. Who feels for her. Then says that the 5 billion yen are the last resort he will give you, and that also mark the end of their relationship as father and daughter. At the end of reading the letter, she begins to cry, confirming that it is really his because of his handwriting. Dean looks away, while his niece cries on stage. I had heard that the beauty woman skill is a form of mental manipulation that is unique, that is above mental conquest. And this must be true if Yoon Seo-hyun could have turned his back on his daughter so blindly. Jean always hated that man. But at least he was a father, very good and reliable for Seiya. Think that Roy would do something like this with his own daughter. Seiya stops crying immediately and breaks the card into pieces, then tells Tada to transmit a message to Railway, who has received his assets and who will be to cut off her relationship with him, saying that begins to realize that shredding the paper, so it will only cause problems for those in charge of cleaning the site afterwards. Jean tells him not to worry later. Uses his strength ability to gather all the pieces of paper, and using their firefighting ability, fire burns them as a skill. Evident magician what he leaves behind, even more confused everyone about what kind of powers, as really Jean is known, who has warrior level combat abilities. At the same time that possesses the mana of a magician and the divine power of a support. To see this powerful man, so Tada can't help but think it's someone who is Japan, needs to have on your side. But T. Adam is not the only one who notices Jean's talent. Other recruiters who also are at the event rush to pass their cards to Jean, as they know that it is not yet in any, and are eager to recruit him suddenly. Jean is by the number of people that claim their attention, and while trying to push them away, Seiya calls it from behind. Initially, Jean wants to tell him that he will catch up with her later, but then notice that she looks like, then begins to wobble and falls to the ground. Unconscious, Jean leaves immediately the lobby area and runs towards her, desperately holding her in her arms. Finally she wakes up and calls him with weakness. He tells her to hold on as he prepares to take her to the hospital, but she approaches him and whispers in his ear that he is actually faking it, but he was having problems in the middle of the snow. So he decided to act on the guards managed to contain the recruiters while Jean attends to Seiya on stage. Now that you know she's fine, can breathe a relief. But that's not the same for people who continue to watch the live broadcast. They observe how Jean is concerned about Seiya and blame Rayway for all this, who caused him so much stress with such a cruel letter. Now that he has an excuse to leave, Jean ends the event immediately, using his niece's health as a justification to leave, then helps her to stand up. and she confirms that she wants to go back to the attic to rest. As they drift away, Teta is still trying to get close to him, offering your card, and asking whether they can be formally met at a later date. Jean doesn't even look at the card, and uses his ability to force it out of his hand, and smash it right over his head. That is the answer of Jean to any possible meeting with, and will not change. The recruiting leader of the 4 most powerful guild in the world has just been rejected by a player, Korean Bronze Lee. There's no way I'm going to make you not mad. I would be. If I wasn't such a weird guy. Man strength, a strange and accommodating smile, his tie, as he realizes that Jean really has a real power. Able to rip a card out of his hand, and shatter it in an instant. That's the only reason it would be worth it. Recruit him for Korea and still a Bronze League player. Which means who is a star in promotion that will become even greater in the future. Teta is even more determined to take Hannah, going up no matter what it takes. Me and Tristan in the corridor to the elevator. Sia and her uncle clap their hands, celebrating a well-made performance. As they continue chatting through the lobby, Jean unexpectedly receives a donation. According to the hidden message, it seems that the sponsor of this ferry, who took the trouble to donate, even after Jean will cut the transmission. The way he talks is also too creepy for Saya and Jean. He even considers blocking the man in spite of the generous donation he received. Your conversation is interrupted by a voice calling out to both of them. Janaishi is near her bodyguard Gilon. She introduces herself as boss of the 3rd department of the Divergent Guild. And although she seems professionally happy to see him, with does not look as enthusiastic behind her, apologizes for going to see him so suddenly. Despite the circumstances, Jean tells him that in theory, should not have been able to enter unless it was directly involved with him, but still somehow successful. Sneaking past security, Jean also notes that his voice works for him, strangely familiar, as if I had met her before. Explains that he has links with the Beidel department of South Korea, so it was their connections, those that allowed him to reach this place. Has a lot of self-confidence, and his attitude almost feels shameless. Who is sure you have met someone with this type of behavior before? While she continues to speak, finally remembers exactly where he saw it. Is an old friend from his past life who always wears a mask and seals the expression of surprise on the face of Jean and assume, which is because he has fallen in love with this. Jean, for his part, need to test a cetacean theory, something he heard her say in his past life. Just to be sure, the world is full of possibilities is difficult. Ignore that this is a quote from the great writer, Dostoevsky, known for his addiction to gambling. Ask him directly if he likes that phrase gone, stands in the way of Hanan, and demands to know who exactly he is. Jean Ann's game favor. It's a secret that only a few people know about. So a stranger shouldn't know anything about it. That's the last smile Jean needed. This undoubtedly confirms that is America's top manager name. Zero in his past life. Zero was the only other Korean woman in the guild besides him, and knew her especially for his love of alcohol and gambling. In spite of that, rose to the position of sub-leader of the guild thanks to his voice skills. This ability originally only served to grant experience bonuses, but after finishing the tutorial, the growth range of gifts, statistics, and other aspects of the game are rapidly expanded. The ability to voice became one of the highest value, and the strongest person among those who owned it was Spyro. In the present, however, Zero, now simply Legion, cannot avoid shrinking in pain. While his addiction to gambling, the guild is exposed to these problems. Divergent in some way, we will be able to recruit both Plum Blossom and Zero, which is a rather impressive cast. Even just for the Jean tutorial. Quickly hides his knowledge about his side gambler, telling them that he had seen it before in one of its transmissions, live, and that the message she sent was memorable. So he had to ask, then, for surprising him, RSB wishing to pass page of that embarrassing conversation. While continuing to talk, Dean can't help but smile at his witticisms, and that only convinces more to see that he likes it. Then and now takes advantage of the already comfortable atmosphere to approach him with more confidence by telling him, which has the feeling that they will see each other more often. Pulls out his phone and offers it to him with the clear intention of inviting him to the guild and to be able to meet with him in private. Seal squeals at the new development, believing that it is about to get a new int out of nowhere. Even believes it left a strong impression on Jean, and look at Gun, who was rejected by him in the past. Everything would have been perfect if it hadn't, because Jean does not remember his number, and asks Sia if she can give hers. Sia misinterprets it and believes that Jean plays hard to get and has a plan for what he pretends dizziness again when he saw that he wanted to retire. Jean gets used to it and asks Anne for his business card to contact her later. Uncle and niece continue on their way to the penthouse with Seal, convinced that her uncle became a womanizer. Bonnie and Barch and the bodyguard trembles after the exchange, tells Gon to laugh at once before he gets angry. In the elevator, Sia comments that he never thought his uncle would wear his father's clothes. Hen says his clothes no longer fit him and that the clothes are not to blame, that as long as it looks good it's fine. Then she asks him about what he did before. Tell a pretty woman who forgot her Jean number. Does not understand what he is talking about and shows himself genuinely confused as long as it is. Scolds him for pretending, until he makes it clear to her that he doesn't really know her number, and that he wasn't playing hard to get. Later begins another mission. Once again a tower defense mission whose objective is to protect the glass and name the zombie horde. Jean is not mentally prepared, because it took a long time, penciling C. After she believed that he interrupted his uncle's opportunity to initiate a relationship, wrongly assuming that Jean likes Lion. When he feels nothing romantic by a compulsive player, who is how he feels about her. Never thought I would see Zero like this again. In his past life, we're close friends because they came from the same country. On their days off, bet on sports, and Zero continued to grow even if it repeatedly lost. It was at those times that he heard her use that phrase she seemed so fond of. Also had a scar on his face that was refused to delete because it said it was the price for a deal. With the devil they had much in common despite being refugees, which made them friends. And the deepest part they shared was the guilt, self-hatred and repentance for not having protected those who loved. Inclined Jean's the head as magical memories returned to his mind. But the avalanche of comments in its transmission does not bring back to reality. Also notice the huge sword in his hand, which has to be the first normal weapon that brings to a mission since he started to enter the battle. This weapon is the sword kills Pontifex horses of rank D. And despite its classification, Jean trying to get it cheap. Now that he holds it he can see why. Is too large and heavy so that most can handle it. But for him it is quite easy to use. Waves the sword to become more familiar with her, and her spectators are by their obvious combat ability are asked to show your status window to finally see what is your class and statistics. It seems that there are many people looking at it, so they start asking for more things. Right now it already has 12,000 live Jean viewers. Not sure you want to show its window of state to the public, but he cannot ignore them as they are followers. Decides to be direct. Because there are too many people, dies, and turns on his microphone to talk to them. Tells them that he will reveal his state window if they manage to make their channel reach 200,000 subscribers. Is a high goal, considering that he has only 10,000 but promises to do so as soon as it reaches 200,000 later, to make the deal more interesting and to prevent them from complaining. Adds one more condition. If it fails to finish in first place in any game from now on, will reveal his window of state as soon as he obtains treatment has the desired effect, and now all are much more interested in the challenge. Believe that the game of Jean will be over as soon as he matches a troll. Just at that moment, the other 3 players are called up as soon as Jean sees them. He can't believe his bad luck. Of as many people as possible, he got the 3 worst ones he could get with pointsight at the same time. The first is the bright child to whom Jen mercilessly destroyed recently. The second is the magician, whom he treated as a hero, anti-stress on its first defense mission. The only one who has not been killed by Jean is the professional soccer player turned player, Diego Mesa, the best of Argentina before Jean's regression. Right now Diego is not very impressive. It looks delicious, with a messy beard. And there is also something strange. Is the warrior. Him Du Yuk is the magician and Jean is the support. What it would mean that Diego is the goalkeeper. However, in Jean Diego's past life he was a magician. So something weird must have passed. Fifth Yuk is also not happy with this pairing. Thanks to Jean eliminating it last time. Lost his ability and its rewards from the past mission. Then suddenly someone called the Sword King's family. 898 records a reward mission. Destroy the glass and prevent Jean get the first place. And the reward, just like with Golden Light, is an absurd amount of money. The game starts, and Diego attacks immediately. Starts hitting zombies with his soccer ball. Impressively achieving, shoot down every zombie in the tower with accurate shots. Then asks Jean more supportive enhancements to increase your power. Jean, I have never had enough statistics for using support skills, so he never tried them. But now that his defying power has increased, maybe you can use them. Gives you an increase in strength, which confirms that it must be supported. although that is only even more so to viewers about their true class. Before starting the fight, Jin asks Kim Dojik if this time he is ready to play for real. Golden Light, who still tries to be Jin's #1 fan, is interested in knowing if Jin and Kim Doyuk know each other, but the magician has no choice. If he misbehaves again, Jin will simply throw it back. The magician has no choice but to cooperate, and with that, Jin jumps out of the tower to fight directly against zombies. Diego's first impression of Jin is crazy, and the magician definitely agrees with that analysis. I don't understand Jin at all, and especially hates it when Jin looks like treat him as if he were some kind of subordinate. The magician has had enough. If Jin goes around doing what he wants to do, then he should also be able to do whatever he wants. Oh, Jin falls directly on the hit of undead heroes with a ball of fire already loaded in the hand, ready for burst with its newly unlocked mana reserve, and his divine power increased to create strength. A small horde of the undead is nothing for our protagonists. A rain of fire divine about the zombies that were waiting for him, and upon landing he turns with his comically huge sword and hits it against the ground, releasing a shockwave so large it kills everything that is in a small radius, including Diego can hardly believe that a bronze rank support is as powerful, while Goldie can only taking refuge in front of the man who once hit him brutally twice. This entire sequence is broadcast live, and some spectators speculate that Jin could have already killed 100 zombies with that single attack. Next to appear are blood zombies, larger and stronger than cannon fodder. Usually run towards it, but collide unexpectedly against a wall, invisible that they cannot pass through. This is because Jin is testing the authentic value of spatial controllability. Force, with it, is capable of generating an absolute territory, an elegant way of saying that can limit the movements of anything to be unlucky to enter that space. In some cases, can even control it. Most do not know this power, but Jin is very familiar. In his past life, man whose control of the Force was a disaster always wore Jin as a training partner. Both fought over and over again, and that's why Jin came to fully understand the capabilities of the Force right now. Jin is an absolute being who can wear mana and divine power simultaneously, while also having access to the Force and martial power. Only in terms of pure advantages, Jin is well above anyone in the league. Bronze in less than a minute. Since he fell into the horde of zombies, has already eliminated more than 100. The last time he had a defense mission, failed to complete the mission of 1,000 deaths, but this time he is sure he can make it. Just have to go a little faster, and he should get it with every shot of his gun. Dozens of zombies fall with ease, and for all those who observe it, this scene is simply absurd. Its viewers now understand why he said so confidently that he will continue coming in first place in every game from now on. The problem now is to reach 200,000 subscribers, to be able to see your status window. The rest of the team can only watch as Jin loads the team effortlessly, but there is one particularly quiet person. Toyuk smiles sinisterly, and the spectators realize that something is going very wrong for them. Ask him the Golden Light to turn around to guard the magician, and Goldie immediately see what is happening. Toyu, that is next to the glass that is supposed to be, must protect, with a fireball in his hand. Your intentions are clear, and it seems about to do something crazy, but before doing so, wants to take a moment to make fun of Jin, who continues to fight zombies. Now that he thinks he is safe, he releases all his anger and frustration he has accumulated against Jin, throwing insults at him and eventually also insulting his niece Sia. Even zombies stop fighting and tremble by realizing that this is a lousy idea. Jin remains silent while Toya continues to insult and make accusations about, even hinting that Jin has done something terrible for her to be so obedient. The reward of 55,000 that drove Doyuka forward to do something so silly comes from the family Sword King, who holds a grudge against Saiyan. Jin, if the points were converted to real money, would be equivalent to approximately 55 million. And that absurd number is enough to give Kim Dojik the courage to do what he is doing now. Jin can also see through the actions of the magician. Misa tells him that there can only be two reasons by which someone so cowardly he would suddenly start behaving like this. Or someone is behind him, or someone is encouraging him to do this. Must think that as Jin is far away, will be able to destroy the glass quickly and flee without consequences too. Jin really doesn't care about insults against him, but mention Seiya is a line that will be secure, that no one will ever happen again. The day he went back in time and saw again, Seiya could not help remember the horrible nightmare that became his reality to hide. A scar that had been inflicted in a terrorist incident, provoked by the Sword King family. She hid her face with bandages, and when he found her, his body was cold and lifeless. At that time there was nothing he could do for her, and could only cry while holding her in his arms. And now that he has returned with the power to change the future, who will never allow that to happen again, and that will protect C of anyone who tries to hurt her by the flame emanating from your body. Viewers may notice that Jin is furious, and even they realize that mentioning to his family is definitely to draw a line. However, that does not change the fact that apparently is too far away of the glass in order to stop what is going to happen. At least that's what everyone believes. Today we'll be sure to remember what happens when you mess with Sia. The moment he obtained the force, there was something he understood while trying to unite the three sentients. Realized that he could use aimless divine arts. Its martial power is not yet at the diplomatic level, so he can only imitate them, but for now that's all he needs. The instant he gathered the three powers into one, felt a sensation, similar to when he used the nameless divine arts. You only must feel the electricity starting at your feet and then channel it throughout her body, feeling how it turns into lightning from there. Just meets, propelled off the ground and can move at speed. Lightning using a technique called from the shining sky. A method to break the sky. The family Sword King realizes that Jin is moving and warns the wizard, who destroys the crystal quickly. Before I can damage it, his colleagues run to stop him. Doya pushes Goldie with a ball of fire before it can get too close. Then the magician carries an even more powerful fireball, but is blocked by a soccer ball before it can reach the glass. The magician asks what Diego is doing, but the star soccer player always takes himself seriously in a game, and right now he is preventing the magician ruin the game. In addition, Doyak also insulted one of the team members, even insulting his family. Something that cannot be missed. Doyak turns to argue with Diego, but it is too late to do anything else. Jin has arrived, and it doesn't look like it. Nothing happy with the fact that the magician, I want to talk so much. With no choice but to use words, the magician tries to insult him a little more. Hadars is tired of listening to it, and uses the force to shut his mouth. Originally Jin wanted to simply blow his head off as soon as he returns, but that would be too easy. Instead, wants to give him a small punishment before letting him go. Every player has his pain filtered through a bottle, and although Matt Jin, the only penalty would be for the magician to lower a level. So instead, Jin will inflict such brutal damage that the magician will think twice before you dare to do something like this again. Doyak smiles, relieved because he believes that as long as he is connected, there is nothing Jin can do to cause him pain. And he has already lost all his skills, so you have nothing else to lose. At least that's what he believes, until Jin puts a hand on his chest and begins to feel a pain. Unbull. The man screams in agony, and Jin tells him to calm down, because this is just beginning for both of us. The magician's screams continue, echoing all over the game map. Ilok Jin is doing it causes him unbull pain. The other two watch Jin's cruelty in action, but they cannot understand why the magician is feeling so much pain normally. The battle hero should prevent something from hurting enough to make a person scream like that, but Diego understands it quickly. While Jin destroys the wizard's body, is also giving him continuous healing with one hand, which allows you to exploit a system error in which if a support eases recovery skills on Ali receiving damage, fight for things like tears or burns. A greenhouse effect is produced, and during that time a player can feel 100% of the damage that the property fails to filter. Whatever Jin is doing looks terribly strong. Sparky. You can only wonder what kind of skill is using to induce so much suffering. What Jin is doing is to use its strength to tear muscles and fracture bones. Only a few martial artists, experts can use this technique that sends an unknown energy to the target's body and destroys it from behind. Do cannot understand what is happening, for his smile should filter out all the pain. But to him it feels as if his whole body stabbed with arrows and shaken out of control. I just put up with it. Starts begging for Jin to kill him. Jin wastes no time and fulfills his request, cutting off his head from a single, clean cut. But as soon as the player dies, Jin begins to look for the point of reappearance, and as soon as he revives he continues with the punishment. This time, the pain is so intense that Doyak dies for shock. At this point, things have gone so long that the spectators begin to feel uncomfortable watching this. When Doyak revives again, wastes no time, and begins to beg for his life. Well, Jin is moving towards him. Everything has gone too far, and has to intervene to prevent his uncle from do something drastic. If you continue giving in to punishment, could end up losing all of its subscribers. For now, must have this anger and focus on the game. Jean is not satisfied with torture yet. But for the sake of C will stop here is still an era of peace, and what it has done should be sufficient to set a precedent for anyone who attempts to know its limits. Before ending the misery of the wizard, Jean must know who sent him on such a stupid mission. The magician wastes no time and reveals that the person who sponsored it was someone with the username Tamley, Sword King 898. The King's Sword family sponsored it again and again, and that is why he let and continued to act in a manner that is stupid, although that coincides with what Dean knows about this family. It is unlikely that a single person has bet more than 50,000 GE. So it is more likely that it is an entire organization. Once he gets the answers he needs, he grabs to the magician by the neck and tells him to thank Seiya for stopping him from moving forward. Then as Jean throws him into the sky towards his death, the magician screams thanking him for stopping the torturer. With this, Kim Dojik dies for the last time and is eliminated from the game for his delicate torture and the perfect execution of troll throwing. Golden Light and Diego give Jean 10 points each. Now that the foam has been removed, Jean must go down and take down more zombies. According to his memories, killed at least 920 zombies, so it should to be able to eliminate 80 more in an open and of eyes. However, when opens its status window to review what is missing, discovers that he has already completed the linked mission, and that is due to the generated by his steps from the sky. Flashing the electricity from its takeoff overloaded the ground and electrocuted nearby zombies, allowing you to kill enough to actually complete the mission. This happened because they could not control it, and the energy scattered exploded, causing that result. Did not use the divine arts without a name, only the 3 sentient, so the execution was not perfect, yet the results were good. So he can't complain too much. For now you only need train more and have a better mastery of their skills. Goldie tries to be friendly with Kyan and asks him if he is going to come down again so that they can fight together. But our protagonist ignores it completely and is going to meet with Diego, thanks the Sucker Star for helping to protect Glass as he made his way there, and even offers to meet him later to adequately compensate for it. In addition, as many things you want to discuss with him about your talk. Friendly is suddenly interrupted by an earthquake. Feels as if something is trying to break the earth. Something that has never happened before. Goldie note that something seems to be about to explode, and Diego sees something emerging in the distance. It seems a gigantic hand with a mouth that breaks the ground. This is a completely new prototype that does not even Jean has seen before, and it looks incredibly ominous. Zombies seem to have a vigor renewed now that this Tuesday has appeared, and everything indicates that things are about to become chaotic as the zombies begin to charge towards them. The monstrous hand roars, and the sound even makes Jean is paralyzed. However, it does not appear that the hand is the zombies rather than to choose them and eats them. Then the duff, crushed undead, falls to the ground, turned into a drool living thing that grows and transforms in a completely new universe that should not appear on a map. Bronze, a golem of meat, a poison that normally only appears on gold level or higher maps. Looks like that beast evil is creating these new heroes in their physical bodies and recombining them. Who wonders if this is because of the mission linked and opens its status window to check it. The linked mission, Zombie Origin 1, has changed to Zombie Origin 2, and now its mission is to take care of the meat golem without the help of Glass. Giant does not understand what exactly it means without the help of Glass, but before you can find out, you receive a system notification informing him that he has received an extra mission from the others. Players also receive her and are as confused as he is. Cannot imagine having to fight that creature. Gigantic, but the system has clearly given them the objective of defeating her. Also names to the enormous beast as the of destruction. Called Hand Black also unlock the blessing of the Glass. Allows them to reduce the power gap enough to have any opportunity to fight even Goldie, who is as strong as a Gold League player, is not sure they can win. In fact, tells Jean that even gold level people has difficulties with this type of mission. Definitely not a mission designed to be completed. Otherwise they would not offer such rewards. The system is offering you 10,000 achievement points and a crystal fragment. It is rare for the system to offer a reward that are not just points of achievement that are what means that this mission is at least of an epic level. Goldie resigns herself to her fate and tells Jean who should receive the blessing of the crystal first, but our protagonist refuses, then takes his sword and prepares to launch itself against the golem of meat that is already pointing to the Glass. A golem of meat is not dead with incredible vitality. Can only be defeated, destroying the nucleus in the center of its body. But even that is difficult, because its huge body contains crystal fragments, embedded everywhere. And even for someone of gold level, the golem is a final boss, and although Jean has surpassed the strength of a bronze player, this is not an easy situation to handle. He tells the other two to turn away later. Jumps into the air using the steps of the sky, flashing, leaving a sparkling mark behind it. As he heads towards the balcony, he remembers the most basic and fundamental skill of the arts, divine without name, the martial devotion of the three talents. These martial arts created based on the sky, the earth, and humanity have three meanings, fundamental elements that make up the divine arts without a name. With the understanding of these gene principles, is able to activate a new ability called martial devotion of the three talents, with which it cuts plainly to the flesh golem with a single blow. The impact is so strong that it achieves to go through the tough meat completely and destroy the core of a single attack on the feat is so impressive that Diego drops his surprise ball, and the system announces that Jean has eliminated the meat golem and has completed the extra mission of the fourth tower. The instant Jean swinged his sword, golden light felt a complicated emotion that was difficult to describe, but which can be summarized easily as pure admiration. Goldie falls to her knees from exhaustion, while Diego continues to look in shock. I had never experienced anything like this at first, Sparky. I just wanted to convert it into content for transmissions. But now he wants more than that. Wants to record everything that Jean do and watch it grow to the top, as a player and as a streamer. But in addition to the firm, golden light decision to put your body and heart on the line by Jean at this time, also marks the beginning of the relationship between Saint Jean and Diego, platonic of course. This is not that kind of manga. Jean trying to quickly and easily remove the meat golem. But the other towers are not having so much luck. With a single stroke, the meat golem destroyed the third tower, finishing its extra mission, and the other towers are facing a similar fate. Mientras tanto, Jean group prepares for Logan. How they manage to complete the extra mission will receive triple the experience and GP. Rewards are abundant. But there is more to it than Jean wants to do now that he has the opportunity. Suggests that he and Diego see each other in the real world. Diego rejects at the beginning, since receiving that bonus is enough reward for him, but Jean has other plans. Would like to give Diego more information about its ability that surprises the soccer player, and Jean gives him a clue to further his interest. Tells him that he needs to become a magician. However, it would be boring to explain everything right now. So he proposes to continue the conversation during a meal. If anyone else had said something like this, Diego would not bother to respond. But as it comes from Sanjiana, has just shown incredible power, cannot avoid taking an interest in understanding the situation. Diego send a private message to Gianni, both plan to meet later to eat and talk. Goldie listen to the conversation and beg to be invited as well, but Jean is not interested in the brilliant streamer at all, and the food is also to reward Diego. Goldie insists and even offers to become its editor, but Jean is not interested and closes session while the streamer continues to beg for an opportunity. Back in his room in the Palace of the Sword, checks rewards for completing the second mission. Linked obtains 10,000 achievement points and a crystal fragment. But things are not over yet, and will receive the next linked mission called fingerprints once he reaches the Silver League. It is good that he has gained strength, but the glass fragment is more disappointing than expected. Is a single-use B-range object that bestows a divine blessing and can only be used in bronze or silver areas. A divine blessing is something that only users of more powerful support, as the saints, can use. Is a great impulse that increases all skills by 50%, and is indispensable at higher levels. However, the fact that it is a single use and limited to low levels is tremendously boring. Yet the other rewards more than make up for it. On the one hand, he raised 3 levels and obtained 6,000 GP, thanks to its triple bonus for completing the extra mission. Is now level 13, and both its power, martial, and its strength are at level 17. 12 levels for the silver promotion game, so its progress is frankly incredible. Who wonders if there will be other players who have advanced as fast as ever. The divine object from another world who worked on the tower defense mission begins to react as it met the requirements of the object. His divine power increases by 2 points and is combined with the force. Yet even though he used all his power of the weapon, and this is from rank to rank, their statistics do not increase. It seems that the power, divine, and force are not directly proportional. Suddenly, the sword begins to glow brightly. The power of the three, Lantine as always, on it is leaking out, and it seems that that weapon could not withstand his attack. Would be too dangerous. Let that energy escape, so Jean has to absorb it all back into his body. The process fills its room with a bright light, and blinding that even seeps outward. Mientras tanto, in a building next to the Palace of the Sword, resting in a normal room, the recruiter of the self-defense force, Eo, the same one who used the name family of the Sword King 898, cannot avoid feeling depressed because their plans failed. He was the one who registered the mission to force Jean to lose the competition, but despite of their efforts to view the Jean status window, did not get what he intended. Was to take advantage of the magician's resentment towards Jean and the enmity of the Sword King family, since things have not calmed down since the Sword King disappeared. For now you need to stop ruining the game. Pretending to be part of the Sword King family. It would have been perfect for everything to work in a single attempt. But it looks like he chose a player. Pathetic for doing dirty work. Everything would have worked out fine if the magician would have destroyed the glass immediately instead of wasting time on. At the pace things are going, could miss the opportunity to bring Jean to Japan as self-defense force recruitment manager. Niote had a case. He immediately realized that Jean is a talented player and must recruit him using his long experience. However, their superiors only act after having clear and concrete evidence. He was asked to evidence that his with respect to the bronze was correct, and to support its position, needed to see the status window of Jean, which would serve as evidence, indisputable that he is a player strong enough to interest Japan. But time is running out, and I need you up the ante and bring out the largest resources to obtain the status window of Jean. Once I achieve that, you will receive permission to use the same special method they used to get the Sword King back with. Jean somehow managed to absorb the power with the sword and even increase its power divine on a level. This time its strength was increased thanks to this. Understands that every 3 levels of power divine are equivalent to a level of strength in addition, since its martial power is connected to the force, also raised 1 point, bringing both to level. Is a pity, lose the weapon, but the benefits of their destruction compensate for the loss. However, the system has not yet been completed. It informs you that since the value of force has exceeded 17, can only absorb power, divine objects of rank A or higher. That is a huge disadvantage, since the divine objects of rank A are extremely difficult to find. At that time Seals bursts into the room to tell his uncle, "You have just received a deposit of 50 billion. His joy is cut off and dry when you see the condition of the room and the condition of the jeans. He tries to disguise, but the source of blood on his forehead says otherwise. Sia ignores his attempts to calm her down and take her to the bathroom to apply medicine in the wounds, who simply follows it while she scolds him with a smile on his face. Later, after bandaging his wounds, the two of them go out to a restaurant to eat with the money they receive. After spending a decade in the United States, I missed eating very much. Pork in a familiar Korean atmosphere is the first time he can eat a meal appropriate since he returned in time. Not that I'd eat outside all the time again, but Jean just wanted to go back to the food he knows. Sella insists that she pays, so I should order something better and more expensive. Boo simply wave your hand and tells him that they are going to eat anyway, together every day, so they can leave the food elegant for another occasion. But Seal tells him that they will not be eating together for a long time. Has decided to return to school, and although it may not seem so, remains the president of the student council. So it's strange that it's been so close. The teacher has already told you that he can rest for a week more, but it is almost the day to receive the blessing of the gift room. So you can't miss the room for much longer. Of gifts is something that everyone experience on their birthday. Seiya's birthday is August 22nd. And even in such difficult times, she was looking forward to that day. That wanted to be blessed in the living room of gifts. I was hoping to get a gift from your best situation. That hope was broken when he received a gift from Range, and that was the moment when the strong Sella finally fell emotionally. He cannot tell you that he is going to receive a gift of rank. So for now, he is just trying to lower his expectations. She will start school the next day, since it is Monday, to have a new beginning. Jean offers himself as his personal round-trip driver, and even though she tries to argue, Jean has already made the decision herself. Frown and look away. But even though he tries to look, cannot hide the joy of his decision. The next day, early in the morning, both go down to the castle of the Palace of the Sword. just to discover that all the cars, the sword cane has disappeared. Had a collection of sports cars and supercars. But now the place is completely empty. It appears that their relatives sold them without telling them. Seal decides to take the bus, but Jean notices that one car is left abandoned. The stepmother's car that must not have been worth much. So they left him fortunately. The door is open, and the keys are still inside. Despite its old and battered appearance, the car. She panics a little at the sight of who will be in that car, and Jean thinks she is embarrassed to be seen in a car so old, but she tells him that she is actually dead. He asks him why, and gets your answer. When they arrive at school and a tall man, bald and furious looking, he tells them to walk away. Are at the red debate Gami where they are. She studies, and it seems that this man wants to fight with them just because Dean drives a cheap car, demands that they move, and even calls Jean a beggar, which causes to get our protagonist out of the car calmly and tell the man to take care of his tongue. People around immediately recognize Jean, like bronze mirror, and they bring out their phones to record and broadcast the scene. Elsewhere, at the headquarters of the Divergent Guild, gets up immediately and tells gang to follow her as soon as you watch the video, and realizes where Jean is. This time is going to make sure that Jean don't look down on it back in Jean. The man continues to provoke it, and finally, throws a punch. Jean makes no attempt to block but uses force to stop the fist before it touches his face after. Before man can speak, Jean closes his mouth and whips him against the ground, bringing him to his knees, while Jean calmly scolds him for being so. Seiya appears by the side of the car and warns his uncle that there are people watching. Then from the car the man was driving, a girl the age of Seal sticks its head out the window and flames it. His name is Kingu and is the vice president of the Battle Network. Seems to be a friend and gets out of the car to greet her on her way out. Asks why his driver is on the ground, and he lies, saying it's because the floor is slippery. Ignoring his driver's excuse, Kimo asks Seiya where are the supercars that used to have. Seiya admits that her father sold all the cars, and Hizu cares even more by telling him that should have contacted her in that situation. Then promises take her to school from now on. Both the stock and the offer are as sudden ceiling. Cannot hide his surprise, but he insisted and even offered talk to his father about it. Jean observes the interaction, but something doesn't add up, does not remember that no one was so close to she and her past life later. Can arrive at the Battle Network. Not even 10 minutes have passed since the video showing Hen went viral, but he is no longer. An employee confirms that Hen got into his car and left, which made him cares even more. He is concerned that foreign explorers try to recruit him as well, and he wants to get ahead of themselves before they do. Ondai has of biting his nails and tells him to calm down. She is forced to accept the situation and think of a new plan. Failed to find it this time, but from now on it will follow. Live until I get it. As he walks away, watch the game in which Jean is participating. As for the game itself, the results are obvious. Jean has an advantage overwhelming over the rest of the players, and is defeating them too easily. With their nameless divine arts and martial arts, quickly eliminates all its opponents. Is practicing how to focus on his senses and adapt quickly to situations. And it seems that it is giving it crunchy results. Knuckles and focuses its attention on its following objectives, who have already been beaten by the before, who is already known as the man who defeated a golem, a flesh in a single stroke. For any League player, bronze facing him is practically the same as a natural disaster, impossible to prevent. The game ends, and once again who comes first has also won first place 5 times in a row. The system therefore grants it an increase of the 200% in experience gain, and EP also reaches level 15. What you unlock the dungeon map as its next area. The dungeons are a game mode that opens up from level 15, and unlike the rest of the game, where you just have to fight, contain labyrinth traps and riddles that must be solved in order to move forward. However, this mode is cooperative, and there is a limit to what a person can do alone. Even at the Battle Network, recommend cooperate with colleagues to play in Mormoras. But there are too many people behind him, and if he ends up paired with people who want to show it off, will not be able to do anything about it. He considers briefly join a guild but changes his mind. Immediately does not want to stay long, and at the guild would be when it is time to leave. Will also soon reach the elite silver, and when I do, will create its own guild later that day. It's time for dinner, and Dean asks Seiya to set the table. Food is ready, and they both sit down to eat. Seiya is surprised that Jean cooks so well, but he simply mixed the ingredients they had to prepare a meal. Basic she gets excited about how sick she is, and Jim tells him that next time he will cook properly for him. He used to prepare food every day when I was in the United States. So he is very used to the kitchen. While eating, Boo asks Sia if you plan to accept your friend's trip, often from now on. Sia tells him he doesn't want to go in his car, because throughout the journey he exaggerated a lot. Made her feel uncomfortable and asked him 2 personal questions, to the point that it became unbearable. Jean immediately understands and realizes that being with that girl must be horrible. There is also another reason. His mother's car is much more comfortable and warmer. Jean agrees. The next day, Jean takes her to school, and this time there are many explorers and reporters waiting for them. After the previous day's show, no wonder that so many people are interested in seeing it. At this point, are practically their stalkers. Fortunately, school safety is doing a good job keeping them away and off campus. When they enter the game, see 2 familiar faces waiting for them, and Gon clearly waiting for him since before. She is even more upset, because he gave him his calling card, and he never contacted her. The truth is that he simply forgot completely from it. This time, however, she made sure she had no way to escape. Takes him to the garden on the school, where they can have a private meeting. Or at least it would be private if it were not for the other recruiters, camping outside in hopes of talking to Jean. Jean, note that you did, is more comfortable than normal, because he graduated from that school. But she is also more upset with his behavior. He apologizes for forgetting her, but she tells him it's okay, as it is a refreshing change. Who is the first person that has made her run after someone? So he prepared a suitable deal for him, offers him a platinum grade contract on the spot, which gives incredible benefits to whoever signs it. It's such a big deal that the other recruiters begin to take on defeated and are about to leave. Even Jean is surprised by how prepared he looks to be alone for him. Then she decides to tell him directly that this contract was only possible because of her. Then it was, leans towards him and confesses directly that these are their feelings. His approach is so direct and cash that recruiters who still retained a thread of hope they turn around and leave. Even Jean has to admit who is impressed by how well she planned all this. As she watches him, staringly trying to figure out what he's thinking. Its proximity allows you to detect the scent of its perfume. Immediately recognizes that it is the same perfume that Zero used when they were close friends. Is now sure that Mexican law is made the Zero he knew. But now the next question arises. Another peculiarity of hers will follow, being the same as before. Tired of standing without any reaction. Is finally let fall into his seat with a snort at this point. Is frustrated because she fails to obtain an emotional response from him, and also doesn't even have his phone number. It seems that she is the only one who has been giving things. So now she is determined to get her number. Whatever it takes. Tells him that after the contract is reviewed, we'll need to put your seals, so you will need your contact. His approach is too direct, and Jean immediately realizes that he just wants to. His number this time does not reject it. Instead proposes a bet. Tells him that he has just reached level 15. And as you know, the first game after that milestone is always a dungeon. And I can hardly believe that Jean is already at level 15. Less than a month has passed since it began to participate actively in the network, and it has already grown so much. But most importantly is that even in such a situation, he tries to make a bet with her. It makes no sense. She does not reject it and asks what its conditions are. It is simple. Wants to enter the battle network right now. And if it does not come in first place, we'll sign a contract with the Divergent Guild. And of course, we'll also give you your number. Sounds risky because it is, well, I guess a lot of people are aiming at him. If you enter your first dungeon alone, without equipment or guild, will end up paired with random people. The offer is almost too good to be true for Sean, and it's scary that he might throw something like this out of nowhere. She does not refuse and asks him what he wants hers. If you lose the bet, your request is simple. The last piece of the puzzle. You need to confirm's identity. Wants to see your status screen. Once you see it, we'll be able to check if she has the same gift of wisdom than Zero in this time. The gift of wisdom was nothing more than an increase in experience, which made it an embarrassing gift for showing off others, and sees reaction. Practically confirms its suspicions, but even so, needs to check it out with your own eyes, and make sure your is correct. As I expected, she accepts the bet, grudging, and warns him not to regret it later. As it plans to enter the battle network immediately, asks him if he wants to move to another location. But he doesn't need it. Enters the battle network. Immediately, and also starts a transmission live so that they can see it as expected appears in a dungeon called the Conqueror's Gate. The homeland of the Conqueror is a high difficulty dungeon where the legendary Conqueror sleeps. They appear various types of poisons, but inside the complex riddles, traps or labyrinths of other dungeons. However, the reason why its difficulty is so high is that the only way to complete it is to ensure that all members of the team survive to the end, which means that luck with Kiers is extremely important. Who enters the dungeon, and his temporary companions appear next to him. As far as you can see, do not look bad at all, and recognize it immediately. It seems all belong to the same, and they have a pretty good team. They greet with respect and see each other genuinely happy to work with him. One of the commentators recognizes players as members of the guild. Black are often considered, so they are likely to achieve first place. The team even adopts a more relaxed attitude now that they have someone as strong as Jean. Initially told that they will take the lead and that he can follow them, but Jean refuses and decides to manage the team himself. Try to argue a little, but it is obvious that Jean is more reliable, so they still do not protest. Jean is simply relieved that this time they are not trolls, since I was concerned about the clear conditions of this dungeon. Now you just need make sure to take them all to the end. They enter to the first level and the reflections begin to appear. The soil appears to grow as the sand transforms slowly in reflections, known as Guardians of Darkness. The rest of the team adopts combat position and asks how they should be trained, but Giant just needs them to stay behind him. Walks calmly towards the room, full of sand guardians. As soon as it enters, try to attack him, but he dodges easily. Then returns the blow with a simple punch, knocking down one of the guards at once. Continues with the offensive, the guards, and eliminating them effortlessly before they even manage to attack it. In a matter of seconds the room is clear and reminds them of their STUNS colleagues who must keep up with him in his profession of the conquistador. There are a total of 10 roads, and each team is assigned to one of them. All roads lead to subway level 7, where the final stage is located. The team of Jean was assigned to the Jan, and they currently have an overwhelming advantage, already going through level 3, and all that his colleagues have had to do is to follow Jean in silence. Had heard of its strength, but seeing him in person is really humiliating. Is crushing the resistant heads of the soldiers as if they were sand and clearing the road effortlessly. In all this time hasn't even used a gun, and yet shows a strength far superior to that of a player from Bronze League while advancing. Receives a donation of a name, family user, and annoyed the man. Please check your mail for a large donation. Is strange way of speaking, even invited commentators, and their intentions are clear. Wants to recruit Jean for Japan at any cost. The commentators Jean beg not to leave Korea, since they cannot lose it as well after having lost the Sword King by luck. He has no intention of leaving, and even blocks the Atita of its transmission for making such attempts to pathetic of recruiting him. Now they have finished level 3, while the rest of the teams probably is still struggling to complete level 1. One of the players tests the of a guardian with his sword, and discovers that his durability is as hard as metal, yet who destroys them easily with his fists alone. While the warrior checks the durability of the statue, receives a strange message that makes him stop for a moment. The others continue advancing through the tower, and the magician of the group apologizes for letting Jean do everything for them. He doesn't really mind. Is happy that they are not trolls like most people with which he has played reach the level 4 that he seems to be a straight road. While Jean checks the area, another player receives a message and stares at the screen. Incredulous Jean can deduce by reflections on walls and floors that they are all traps set for themselves normally. The Conqueror's homeland has almost no cheating, but it seems that they are all concentrated here at Jean are not affected, and asks them if it is okay to accelerate a little. Once again takes the and asks them to keep watch his back as he advances through the dungeon. As he moves forward, the archer and the warrior secretly pull out their weapons, wait for him to move, to kill each other at the first opportunity. The message they receive was another attempt by the family Sword King to ruin the game of him, telling them to commit suicide without being discovered, which automatically would sabotage the game. Guild members Black received the same mission, sent by the same Teta who had just been banned from the stream. Originally, the recruiter wanted to avoid this method, but at this point, the only thing you can use is money to try get away with the stage set. The question is, what will they do to avoid their inevitable defeat when there are several people purchased to ensure that we will have. Moreover, these players will not make it obvious, which means that as soon as he walks away, we'll fail immediately. There is no championship, and Tada is sure he will win. Unless a certain golden boy decides to intervene and warn Jean in advance. Jean and the magician advance through the room full of traps, and these are activated immediately. Throwing several arrows at them, the magician tries to prepare a spell to stop them, but Jean already has an active plan on territory absolute, and the molecules are suspended in the air. The excited magician is toward to ask his colleagues if you are also seeing that, and that's when you notice that they are both pointing their guns at themselves. El Mago shouts for them to stop, and that is enough for them to. Jean turn around and notice what they are trying to do. Activates its steps from the sky, flashing in a fraction of a second, taking advantage of the confusion. And it is fast enough to stop them before they do anything drastic. By knocking his weapons out of his hands, he then uses force to immobilize them against the ground. The magician comes running back from the room of traps to see if Jean and his colleagues are well. In their panic, the two reveal that they received a rescue mission. If one of them is killed, the game ends immediately for the team. The magician is disappointed with Jean for his peers' actions, but Jean, he is only relieved to have arrived on time. Although he knows this is not over yet, he uses its ability force to move the magician's hand, just as a ray of light shoots out, narrowly preventing him from committing suicide as well. The entire Black Guild receive the same mission. And the magician screams in frustration and asks Hen how he knew everyone had received it, for they did nothing to suspicion. The person who alerted Hen on their partners corrupted was none other than Golden Light, who paid the absurdly high donation fee, and just to make sure he knew that his colleagues had been bribed. Thanks to being an inveterate Goldie fan, had been watching the transmission in real time, and noted that the other members seemed to receive a strange message one by one. It was then that he saw the mission sent by the family of the King of the Sword, 989, with a reward, incredibly high from 1.000 million, superscript 1, so I had to make sure I told Jean. Even though the donation message, starting at 10 million superscript 1, but Jean is more focused on how strange it seems. This event, regardless of the grudge that the family of the King of the Sword has against him, spend 1 billion on a single mission is simply crazy. Even if his life were at stake, definitely not worth that much. The conclusion is that whoever sent this mission must be at least one member with guild rank, aimed or someone with the influence special of the King of the Sword. To think they would give 1 billion yen just to check a status screen is insane. So now the question is, who could have done such a thing? The commentators immediately realized that it must be Terra. That's the only person capable of doing something so dirty while throwing an enormous amount of money in the process. Because of this, Jean changes his promise. Instead of revealing its status screen at 200.0 subscribers, will now show it when it arrives to 1 million subscribers. However, even with that change, his promise to come first on every mission remains the same, while saying, raises the warrior's sword and pulls out a special indication of your inventory. It's a good thing this happened because Jean was concerned with reaching the 200.0 subscribers too soon. Thanks to all of this, trying to earn some money as well as attention. Now with the grade qualification, it is time to take care of these traitors with whom, unfortunately, it was his turn to team up with the Thai, altogether as if they were cattle, and drags them through the dungeon behind him, so as not to have to worry about them in the end. No mores. Reach the 6th level, just before the Emperor's Hall, and it seems that this place is full of many more guardians of heroes that anywhere else Jean has been to look at. While hundreds of eyes look back on him, warning me not to move forward. Before getting there, Jean continued to drag them on the ground and made sure they did not make too much noise. Also used force to shut their mouths when Jean tied them up. One of the players even said that Jean would make his guild take revenge on him if he continued to treat them like this. But the truth is that the Black Guild probably doesn't want to have anything to do with trolls, as they finally do. To ensure that they would not resist, Jean used his finger to press his pressure points, causing the force to abandon their bodies. That's something that only an artist, advanced level martial eye, an advanced warrior class can make. At this rate they will be senselessly, and there is nothing they can to prevent it. The warrior remembers that Jean is very sensitive when it comes to his niece, but before I can say anything, his mouth is tightly closed, preventing us from doing something stupid while playing on the ground to prevent them from dying passively so that they do not die from the rough treatment. finally reach the 6th floor, where they face multiple mirrors hidden in the shadows by the same clay soldiers who fought before. Only this time there are many more giant is ready for its attack and diverts a sword addressed to his companions. Then, to make sure you don't get distracted, takes your group, tied up, and throws them into the center of the room. Now that it has nous, begins to clean the soldiers of clay, approaching, but unlike before. After cutting them, soldiers regenerate and thousands more come out of the shadows. The fact that your eyes shine means they are in berserker mode. At that instant it appears, a mission linked from nowhere and orders Jean to kill all guardians. It has been some time since he received a mission linked to, and the last time was during the defense map. To ensure that your colleagues are not attacked as long as he is on its back, places a shield on them to protect it. Then, to test how good it is, strikes his sword against him, confirming that it is strong enough as to support anything that clay soldiers. Also reinforces it with a force field, created with its power of strength, forming a double protective layer. Now that you do not have to actively protect them, can concentrate on using all its power to defeat the soldiers begins, using its absolute territory ability, arresting all soldiers before they can getting too close. No matter how many times use this ability, never ceases to be at how extremely powerful that is. All the movements of anyone who enters in the territory are completely slowed down. Then, with only his hands, can surpass everyone. It is a pity that man had such an incredible ability, but will only use it to reinforce his banner now that the clay soldiers are within its territory. It's time to end this with a massive attack. Sends all the soldiers flying and completes the mission without problems. With the 6th floor clear, finally advance to the Emperor's Hall. There they meet the Conqueror, who is the reason why all team members must be alive to complete the mission. Receives them and calls them looters who want to steal gold. The condition for overcoming the final stage is simple. The 4 team members must, bowing, respectful of the Conqueror, and standing in specific areas, it throws the 3 angels to the ground and uses his strength to his smiles, then forces them to walk to the points designated for them to bow. Thanks to its high level of strength, even although the distance between the areas where each player must bend is quite large, Jean is sure he can make it. Gets players to place themselves in the places, and then makes them lean towards the ground. Once he makes sure that everyone has leaned correctly, he joins them, successfully completing the mission. A door opens for them to return to their world, but although he has already completed the mission, Jean does not move. The system has given you a hidden mission that requires you to show respect genuine towards the statue of the Conqueror, with a reward of 5,000 points of achievement and the disappearance of the Conqueror. The sadness is so great, which is basically a spear, and if it completes this mission, will also get it as a reward, but Jean cannot understand what it means. The system with respect, genuine to test. Jean playing towards one of the other players, and throws it towards the Emperor as a sign of respect. Genuine, the golden horse on which the Emperor sits, catches the player and eats him, killing him instantly. The Emperor takes a moment to consider what Jean is doing, then asks our protagonist if the king of the marauders to whom he refers is the Conqueror. Jean himself confirms that a Conqueror is the highest representation of looting, and is just trying to show his genuine respect. Then tells the gigantic statue that instead of all the gold in the room, what he really wants is the princess who rests in the Conqueror's bow. To know the value of this friendship, and to desire plundering it, is respect genuine that the system requires you to display, and that is the condition to complete this hidden mission. In an instant the statue shows a great sadness, and then bursts into deranged laughter. Seems pleased with the show of respect from Jean and praises him for it as a reward. Grants him the treasure for having shown respect. Real and genuine Jean knows what is coming and takes the sword to prepare himself. When the statue tightens the phoenix skirts and points towards Jean's, the air becomes unbearably hot. As the Conqueror turns back the bow, and the others can barely breathe, are set on fire by the phoenix flames that fill the room, and Hen also catches fire. The situation becomes dangerous, and is not sure he can survive to the end. It does not matter if your colleagues die, but the problem is that the moment they die, the weapon he has been taking will also disappear. Jean needs to resolve this before the room passes. Is heated, so much so that even the gold begins to melt, and the Conqueror did not even has shot the arrow yet. One of the others players playing in the overwhelming heat, granted only to Jean and the warrior. The heat is unbearable, and Jean can feel it inside his own body. In its current state, Jean definitely can't face that darkness head on. So his only hope is to aim to the bow before it is fired. Uses another skill that used to be part of the nameless divine technique, called ultra speed stab wound. Just before the conqueror have a chance to shoot the arrow, Jean throws the sword directly into the bow, splitting it in half before it can fire, causing the downed phoenix to fall to the ground. At that time, the appearance of the statue disappears and asks Jean his name, then stop calling him a looter, and begins to refer to him as a noble warrior, then delivers gratitude as a reward for having shown true respect. As it happened, the arrow is so large that it can be used as a spear. Then the statue tells Hen, looking forward to the day when they will be able to find themselves on it. More honorable in the future. The battle network is countless. So it is inevitable that they will cross again, but until then, Jen will gladly wear this new weapon to its full potential. While admiring the spear, its spectators are more concerned for his ability to break the bow. Was so fast that not even the slow motion is enough to see what happened. This is because the ultra speed stab wound is not only extremely fast, but also a technique that aims with absolute accuracy to a single point with a thin sword. The fact that he has been able to use it means he was improving in control of the divine arts. Unnamed the first time he extracted. Stability was unstable and consumed much of its strength, but now, the more you use it, more refined and stable becomes at this rate soon. Aim manifests also the basic forms of martial arts. Now that you have completed the hidden mission, has also been recognized by the conqueror and has been sent from the 7th floor test. As he no longer has to worry about this test, there is no reason to allow that a guy who stabbed him from behind reach number 1 line towards the warrior who barely is up. After the intense heat that enveloped the room at the time, Jean uses his new spear to stab him, ending his life instantly. The game ends and Jean returns to the school roof, where it seems that all were watching their combat in the dungeon. The spear is clearly the most impressive, and it is insane that he has obtained something so valuable from a bronze dungeon. Turns to Manhwa, who were also watching the broadcast, and announces that he came first again, as promised. That means I receive the bet, and as a reward, must show you its status window. Is startled and Jean at first thinks he wants to retract, but in reality is more nervous about the huge spear than he holds behind him. Is filled with such overwhelming power that Gon, almost forced to unravel her sword, instinctively. After you keep the spear, she shows him her state window, as promised. Although she is still ashamed to do so, seeing it confirms exactly what Jean suspected. She has the gift of promotion that allows you to develop other players. Bon observes everything from the side, while seems to die of shame. Hates to talk about his gift. And she was so upset that she spent a lot of money in something you consider a magical gift. So much so that he began to question himself why I had gone to the inn in the first place, and ended up bad-mouthing her whenever he could. And now he has to reveal his ability to promotion in the itself. Jean on the other hand says nothing. Looks up and finds him smiling at me. She thinks he is making fun of her, but he clarifies that he is happy. Then pulls out his phone and asks for his unknown number, reminds him that he lost the bet, but he tells her he just wants her number. Then she replies that her number is on the business card he gave her. But he tells her that he lost her. That basically is equivalent to telling her that she has no interest in her. But now he is suddenly asking for his number. I can't help but feel that he is playing with her. And his ego can't take it, but it still ends up giving him his number, even by looking at his name on his phone with a little heart. Then turns around and walks away with pressuring air, looking back to see how the Alvar as he kept his name. Instead of being surprised or speechless, Dean just laughs softly and tells him that he will call her. That's the last straw for the ego of dies and wants to yell at him, but barely manages to yell at him. Elsewhere in the school, Saya sees his uncle's first incursion into a dungeon, together with his classmates, and everyone is impressed by how strong it is. She, however, does not seem so happy, like the others, for Jean's achievements. In fact, it almost seems, but it comes out of her enthusiasm when a colleague calls her name. The girl asks Ya if you also notice how different it looks, Jean, compared to just a month ago. The last time he went to Saya's house, Jean looked like an unemployed alcoholic drifter, and now he has become this amazing person, who even has one of his colleagues sighing with emotion. Saya cannot avoid shed tears of joy at the sight that his uncle has become such a respectable person. Then they remind him of Sia, that his birthday is approaching. What means that the day she officially becomes a player is also nearby. Everyone wakes up as players on their birthday, which allows them to see their status windows. The other students also remember this fact, and that she must be nervous about it. Students of the Battle Network are waiting for, with anxiety, the day they can become players. After so much school time and training, the room is the main reason why there is such a thing as a gift shop. And all students are interested in the gifts they will receive. The other students begin to wonder if she will receive a gift, and some are already convinced that it will be at least one gift of rank that, after all, his father has a gift of rank S. His mother was rank, and Saint's rank. And there are rumors that his uncle is at least rank. With so many talents in his family, there is no way she is not as powerful. Although it already exists research that demonstrates that genetics has no relation to the gifts, yet she hopes to receive something good. His birthday is in just over a week, so she's been really anxious, but that tries to console her. She tells Seiya to wait with illusion the gift he will receive on his birthday. Mientras tanto, in the training room of the Neo self-defense in Japan, countless people, unconscious, leave behind the king of the sword as proof of his training session. Spectators, they can only wonder if the king of the sword was always this powerful. However, the session shows that it has become even stronger, and that all their skills are now above their previous level. With things at this point all in the self-defense force, Neo look forward to the day when Itaruhi debuts in the fight between Korea and Japan. At the headquarters of the Divergent Guild, is having a conversation, heated with someone on the phone. Is talking to his father, who wants me to try having a relationship with someone she can't stand. Continue to argue, and their father insists on encouraging her to get married as soon as possible. Eventually, she gets so upset that she ends the call, abruptly gone. Enter the room to see what is going on, and I don't even try to hide the fact that she's upset. She left her home and her life behind because his father was still playing force her to marry men too old or unpleasant. This time he forced her to go on a date with an older man, fat and bald, belonging to the self-defense force. Neo was a very bad and uncomfortable situation, and this has been his life since he was old enough to get married. Even though she is rich, that does not prevent his father wants to marry someone wealthy. Gon suggests that go home to rest, but she refuses because it feels more comfortable in the headquarters of the Divergent Guild. Then takes a moment to apologize to his bodyguard. Apparently out of nowhere, she knows that Gon does not have much time for herself because he works as a bodyguard, and with his gift of rank that his talents would have been much more useful elsewhere, yet Gon does not complain and assures I guess be his bodyguard is his duty, and something he has chosen to do for now. Will only hold out until the company. Although the guild recruiter, Divergent, does not want to do so. She wants to be independent, to earn their own money and live the life they want to live, without her parents nagging her to get married. Would be a noble cause, if it weren't for the fact that the main way of ability to earn money on her own is betting. May be legal, but loses in all bets, which makes it very unlikely that I will be able to live on it. But this time she is sure she will win something big. That is due to the upcoming Korean clash against Japan. It's a sad situation, but all Koreans are betting on Japan's victory. People do not say it directly, but everyone knows that Japan is going to win. His phone vibrates in his hands with a Gene message, and the content of the message makes his eyes wide open from the shock. The next day, Gene fulfills his promise to invite Diego to good food as a thank you for your help during the defense mission. Both go to an elegant restaurant where Diego tastes Korean beef for the first time. And even he can tell how expensive Gene is. Doesn't care about that, and tells him to ask anything else you want. He asks for a drink and Gene orders him some soy. In an instant, Diego blends the drink perfectly. And even better than I said at its best. Could have done so. Then try a bite of meat. And is so sick that he can barely speak. Now that you have become familiar, Gene tells Diego to speak more casually and relaxedly. The two of them talk and drink, and over time, Diego confesses that he resents the life he was touched by. If it weren't for the battle net, I would not be living like this. He was a soccer star, one of the best in the world, but in the of an eye he fell to the bottom. That is why he was no longer able to obtain income to support himself, and his wife and children abandoned him. Who understands what Diego is referring to? He was also a world star, someone who could have it all. But with the birth of the battle network, people began to lose interest in sports. And it's that easy. Also lost all his fans. Eventually, FIFA and professional soccer disappeared when people forgot the sport. There is not much more to say. When a world-class player ends up living in Korea teaching children how to play soccer, Diego stops talking about himself and suggests that they get to the point. Recently Jin recommended him to become a magician and wants to know why. It is through the gift that Diego has strength, any object resembling a soccer ball. And it is also a gift of ranks. That's why Diego always carries a ball with him, although he does not know if you have what it takes to be a magician, since its mana statistics are really bad. To demonstrate their sincerity, Jin invokes an object that he specifically got for Diego is a spider's orb, a generic object of rank E from the tribe. Spider the orb is wrapped in spider's web, which makes it very elastic, and since spiders only have legs, the orb is considered a ball, which makes it the perfect team for Diego. This object will bring out the real Diego, the most powerful magician who existed in the past life of Jin. Diego nervously asks how much it costs, and Jin tells him that about 50 million. Super Index 1 mention a price like this makes Diego go through his binge immediately. Is more expensive than your normal home down payment. Diego could not buy something like this, more after 10 years of savings, but Jin is not finished yet and has more to offer, wants to give him that orb as a gift, and also plans to support it financially. He is a soccer player, he can't believe what Jin is saying, but our protagonist is not finished. Wants Diego to join to the guild he will create when he reaches the silver rank. Naturally Diego wants to know if Jin has enough money for that, and RNC is sure it is. Although he is also convinced that he will have much more. Then shows Diego his phone number and what he is enough for the soccer player to think that Jin has completely lost his mind are the predictions of the confrontation between Japan and Korea, and Korea is predicted to have 1 win and 3 losses. Sends the same information to, but she doesn't believe it. According to her, there is no way that Korea can win against the King of the Sword. But the prediction will be proven very soon, because the Korean round of Japan has finally begun. Diego cannot believe that Jin thinks Korea will win a round for him. It is almost impossible to imagine, isn't it? Belittles the Korean team, but the King of the Sword is on a completely different level. Is someone so powerful that he could to face the entire opposing team alone. Jin understands why it's hard to believe, but it is easier to show it than to explain it. So take control, remote, and turns on a T next to the table, where they broadcast the match live. International competition is about to begin, and the condition for winning is simple. A team must defeat all players of the opposing team. There will be 5 rounds, and the first team to obtain 3 victories will be the winner of the Rui Championship. Start charging immediately, and tells his colleagues to follow him. But the rest doubt not want to follow his leadership or recognize him as a partner. It's not just because he's Korean, but also because they already had another member who had been his teammate for a long time. That person was removed so that the King of the Sword will participate in the competition for this reason. Do not want to follow Rui's plans while arguing. One of the Korean players starts with a powerful attack directed directly to Rui. The attack impacts perfectly, surprising both the Japanese and Korean teams. See an opportunity and rush to attack before he can recover. Its objective is to bring down first to the King of the Sword and then take care of the rest. Rula stops with a simple movement of his sword, cutting the ground in front of them before they can reach it. Then as an active he stabs himself in paradise, eliminating itself from the first round of the competition. That gives the first death to the Korean team, impacting the entire audience. Was recorded as a casualty by Korea even though Ruiz killed himself. Now Hen's prediction is starting to make sense. But the question remains as to how I knew it would happen. Jin cannot reveal that, but he tells Diego to concentrate on the game with Booyah. Korean team eliminates easily to other players playing. The first victory for Korea was the role of Nvidia is taken by that support that cast the spell that struck to the King of the Sword at the beginning, and so things take a completely unexpected turn. But exactly as usual, said everything is happening as in his past life, even the cups of betting application dividends. In the recovery area, the players confronts Rui for his reckless decision. He is the representative of the nation, and just committed suicide as if nothing to prove a point. Rui is fed up with his constant complaints and calls them, still without any sense of professionalism. Now understand why they always lost to Korea, and is tired of being surrounded by them. He doesn't care about his childish friendships and tells them, calmly, if he is not recognized as their leader, then it will be killed in every round until they do it. With these options they do not fit more alternative than accepting it as leader if they want to win. The second round begins, and the Korean team is as confused as before. Don't understand why Rui killed himself out of nowhere. At first they wonder if he's a spy or something like that, but they soon see that this is not the case. The Rui that is on the is now clearly more than willing to fight, and has an atmosphere completely different from the previous round. The Korean team remains alert and prepares to defend, but in the oven eye Rui launches an attack so powerful that hits 3 of them with a single blow. The brute force of the attack leaves the players and the audience fully impacted, realizing the overwhelming difference in power. Then continues with another attack, eliminating immediately to the last player who had survived. The Korean public trembles with fear of his onslaught, while the public Japanese screams with joy and Korea. The name Rui, the King of the Sword, defeated the Korean team with only 2 attacks, thus equaling the scoreboard. As expected, with the return of the King of the Sword, Japan easily wins the 3rd round. And the 4th is not very different. The Korean team can hardly resist power, overwhelming Rui, and ends being a completely unilateral defeat. In the 4th round, Korea tries to fight harder, giving everything they have, but it turns out to be useless. Even with hands tied, Rui is able to move his sword with another kind of power and break their chains, defeating them one by one. Without losing the rhythm, only the archer and the magician are left, both to stay on their feet. But it does not make sense. With all your attention focused on Rui, the Japanese team takes advantage of to take down the archer with a blow. Sheep that she does not manage to see the other members coming of the Japanese team are still there after all, and can still contribute something, at least with only the remaining magician. Rui personally approaches to finish her off, does so with a new ability that seems to. The 2 players called each other sword flight, exchange a few words, and the magician does not let its inevitable defeat stop making fun of Rui for his impulsive decision to leave Korea and showing off in Japan. Rui does not let you. May his words please him and tells him that he would have managed to survive longer if their combat skills were at least half of good, that their speaking skills. Without wanting to fall without crossing, the magician activates a spell that increases her power. But before you can finish it, the King of the Sword decides to test a new technique in it by doing. A giant sword of light descends upon his head. I found only one huge in the center of the sand. The fight is over, and as expected, is a crushing victory for Japan. Is difficult for the Korean team to accept, but they are determined to come back stronger, no matter what. The is shocked by how accurately the prediction of Gin he lies by saying he saw it in a dream, and that this dream has now allowed him to earn a mountain of money. Is perfect for him but does not relieve his concern about what he saw from Rui. The King of the Sword is much stronger than he is. Gin remembers, and at this rhythm, our protagonist will not be able to defeat him. In fact, the nameless divine arts are not even enough against him. In addition, Shui has a gift of rank called Summit of the Twin Sword, which makes it even more lethal. All statistics are against, but Jin does not care. Will ensure that regardless of how strong he becomes the King of the Sword, he will become even stronger. Both will eventually collide, and it will be a fight for history. But someone is much more excited about her betting payment than she is about. Jin was able to earn 200,000 wons from only 5,000. I never imagined that day would come, and all thanks to Jin. Unfortunately, ended up with about 20,000 debt wons due to the game's total winnings. After following Jin's advice, was sure that Korea would lose 0-3 and bet even more against him. Bet 200,000 that Korea would suffer defeat, overwhelming without a single victory, and so ended in losses. Back with Jin and Diego comes the central question of the day. The fact that Jin wants to make a contract with the ex-footballer. Diego does not understand why Jin suddenly wants to hire him now. That someone is not considered to be worth so much effort, but Jin is sure that this contract will be worth it. Tells Diego that the same vision he used to predict the result of the Korea match, Japan, is the same one he is using now to ensure that Diego will be an extremely valuable in the future. Jin is completely confident in this decision, and that's why he wants to bring Diego to his side, regardless of cost. Diego will become the strongest magician in the world. And this contract is nothing more than a Jin investment. Diego had not had anyone pursuing him like this since his days as a soccer star. He has missed be a fundamental part of someone's team. Of after the birth of the Battle Network. Thought I would never feel anything like this again, but now Jin has appeared out of nowhere to show him a new light of hope. There is no reason to refuse such a generous offer. Diego stands up happy and extends his hand through the table to narrow it from. Jin will never forget the kindness that Jin showed him today and is determined to return the favor 10,000 times more. Jin smiles softly and tells him that he is looking forward to that day. Mientras tanto, elsewhere with is fighting its own battles. in a kind of gladiatorial combat, is not as skilled as Hen but still easily eliminates the competition, and is known for always positioning itself among the top on any mission. People usually form teams to try to defeat her for that, but she always manages to send them flying without difficulty. The game ends when it deletes to the last 2 threats and reduces total numbers. Once again comes in first place. His result of 5 casualties is not bad at all, but she can no longer feel satisfied with what she needs. Become stronger, to compare with the King of the Sword, who showed a power overwhelming in the fight Korea, Japan, and Kongjun, who has become an undefeated legend. Bon began to relax after entering the Divergent Guild, and now he knows he must try much harder. Seiya faces similar struggles on his part, while reading an article about his father's recent victory. With an expression of pain in his face, tries to disguise, but Eizo can immediately notice that Seiya is not well. The vice president offers to stay with her that day, to accompany her, but Seiya declines the offer, is happy that Eizo can at least take her home. Since his uncle was busy with work and could not pick her up, the driver even apologizes, again for having made the mistake of defying Hen for no reason the other day. Then Eizo brings up another topic that both had discussed before, asking Sella if he has thought more about it. The daughter of the Sword King still looks like doubtful of accepting whatever they have spoken of. However, their conversation is interrupted when the car stops abruptly. Ayer question why did he brake so suddenly, but the reason is right in front of the car. Have arrived at the Palace of the Sword, and a multitude of people is waiting for her at the entrance. Jean has just concluded its meeting with Diego and takes the road home, jumping on this. Note that it feels much lighter, now that its strength has increased, and also that it has grown quite a lot as a result. Takes a moment to admire the view from the top of a building. Sitting on the edge, as he watched the quiet streets below, he used to relaxing ons during your life in the United States. And this feeling brings you some has now seen firsthand. The kind of person you ruse in this era actually never had the opportunity to fight against the King of the Sword in his past life, during the time in which half of the countries on Earth had disappeared and he was beginning to become one of the highest ranks in the world. The King of the Sword, who had been the #1 warrior, disappeared without a trace. Jean still does not know why he disappeared. He is as strong as Jean Lo was on its cusp, but the fact that it is growing fast does not mean that Jean can afford to rest. Must grow and become even stronger than it was then. To achieve this you need to completely dominate the nameless divine arts as soon as possible. When his break ends, continues on the way home, where a shocking scene is waiting for you. El conductor DA tries to push people away to seal. May happen, but there are too many. These people are reporters, and everyone is there trying to get exclusive interviews with Sella, despite man's efforts, propellant for keeping them away. Continue to push to get to the car. Begin to throw questions at him about the combat of the King of the Sword and even accuse her of antagonizing him with her statements. Previous ones approach the car like vultures, and the situation becomes overwhelming for Seiya, who is still trying to process everything. She covers her face while reporters stick their cameras to the car door, desperate to get a glimpse of it. That's why you don't notice the supple growing on her friend's face, who pretends to comfort her from the back seat. Suddenly an angry and calm voice calls them, as Jean approaches, then wears his strength to push reporters away, creating enough space to reach the car. Reporters continue to insist and accuse him of putting his hands on them, on top of innocents, workers who are just doing their jobs. Even accuse him of not caring about his image public, but in reality he cares a lot about her. That's the reason why he's treating them with so much softness despite how furious he is. The expression of anger on his face is enough to make reporters keep silence and look away. He will remember that they should be grateful that things ended up like this. Then arrives at the car where Seal still covers his face in a state of anguish and kindly tells him that they should go home. When they both get out of the car, who takes a moment to thank the driver for trying to protect her, then walks away while saying goodbye to them. Once they are far enough away, and burst into laughter. Laughter that could barely survive throughout the incident. Reporters notice her laughing. She is the daughter of the owner of South Korea's #1 half. It is sad that it is her have to go through this and there. His smiles silently reminding him of the girl. That it's all over for her. The interest hand Roy appears again on public television, stating that he does not have a daughter. Says he abandoned his past and went to Japan. Assures that if there were someone I could call a daughter, it wouldn't mean anything to him now. That is the great interview that caused all this chaos, who can barely contain his fury at the way his ex-brother-in-law treats his only daughter, but beyond her anger, she is most concerned about. His niece had finally begun to cheer up, and this appeared out of nowhere, to ruin all the progress they had made. His expression has darkened again, and he can't help but feel terrible about the situation. Suddenly Saya calls him, and asks him if he remembers the promise he made to her. Listen to any of your requests. The promise was made when she decided to help him find the queen. Shadow now believes it is time for him to make that promise, because he believes he has found the shadow, after much search. Jean's eyes wide open when she pulls out his phone and shows him a video he found, revealing the identity of the Shadow Queen, Biru, and that's all for now. Jean has a lot ahead of him, but it seems that she is strong enough, not only to take care of herself, but also to help you. How the course of history will change the Shadow Queen's castle. We will have to wait to find out.